This man crossed the ocean solely to find his wife. But his wife, Wayan, had already been killed 3 years ago. Even more cruelly, the one who killed her was none other than her own father, Dam Chana. When Seal Mudok heard this news, his rage nearly set the entire North Sea Divine Palace ablaze. How can there be such a father in this world? You are the leader of the Martial Alliance, yet you could personally kill your own daughter. All members of the North Sea Divine Palace, hear my command, follow me into the Central Plains. For her sake, in a single burst of fury, the entire martial world of the Central Plains ran red with blood. Dam Chunha, once so arrogantly untouchable, had now exhausted all his inner power and knelt on the ground awaiting death. In the wind and snow, Seal Mudok walked toward him step by step. Why did you kill Wayan? She was your biological daughter. Tell me, why? Even a death's door, Dam Chunha remained unyielding. The daughter of the Alliance leader falling in love with someone as lowly as you, letting her live was the greatest mistake. A crazed smile twisted across his lips. So what if you conquer the world? You will never obtain the one person you want most. In the snowstorm, Seal Mudok said nothing, but his killing intent had reached its limit. The next second, Dam Chunha was pierced straight through by a pillar of light. Whether he regretted any of this before he died, no one knew. But he was right. What did it matter if Seal Mudok gained the world? Wayne was already gone, and all that remained was the love lotus she had cherished most in life. When the love lotus bloomed, Wayne's smile was dazzlingly bright. Because this flower would only blossom when two lovers truly loved each other. Tears of emotion welled in the corners of her eyes. I never doubted your heart, but when the love lotus refused to bloom, I still felt sad. But now, it's blooming so brilliantly. So this isn't just my feelings alone, you truly love me too. Seal Mudok held her tightly and carefully. Silly girl, who else could I possibly love but you? Seal Mudok gazed at Wayne gently. Seeing her so happy, he too silently thanked this flower. Originally, they had filled the entire garden with love lotuses, but after Wayan left, the flowers withered one by one as well. Just when Seal Mudok was sinking into solitude alone, he saw a scene that left him stunned. The love lotus had actually bloomed again. This second blooming was absolutely unusual, and Seal Mudok immediately summoned his subordinate, Shadowless. With a wave of his hand, he ordered, "Go at once and find someone who can explain what just happened. No matter the cost, bring them to me." Several days later, the North Sea Divine Palace summoned scholars from all regions. They were highly learned, yet all of them seemed faintly uneasy. At that moment, a voice came from the sky. "Everyone, come to my garden immediately." The crowd had no idea what was going on, so they could only follow the voice and rush over. But the moment they arrived at the garden, the sight before them left them utterly stunned. The garden was actually filled with the legendary love lotus in full bloom. An old man rushed forward, his voice trembling. A flower like this may not be seen even once in a lifetime, and yet here, they are all blooming. The character for love appeared on the flower stems. These were unquestionably the love lotuses of legend. Just then, Seal Mudok slowly emerged from behind them. "I am the owner of this garden. Do you like these flowers?" These people were all intimidated at the sight of Seal Mudok, the ruler of the Central Plains, so why was he here? Before they could react, Seal Mudok spoke directly. "My beloved and I made them bloom with our love. But after she died, the flowers withered as well. Yet a few days ago, they all came back to life." Upon hearing this, the scholars' expressions changed dramatically. Then they fell silent in thought. This is indeed abnormal. If it must be explained, there is only one possibility. Seal Mudok's voice was taut with urgency. "Speak, what possibility exactly?" The old man immediately explained. "This can only mean that the former owner has been reborn in a new body. That is to say, your beloved has already been reincarnated somewhere." Seal Mudok was slightly shaken. Really? If that were not the case, how could the love flowers bloom again? A trace of joy lit up in his eyes, as if he had finally seen a path to meeting Wayne again. Ever since Seal Mudok unified the Central Plains and fulfilled the long-cherished wish of the North Sea Divine Palace, all that remained for him was an even deeper emptiness. Time had not lessened his longing. For the girl who had once made him wait day and night, his love for her only grew deeper. And what he now needed most was a way to find her. The old man told him, "Legend says that when two lovers are in the same place, the love lotus you cultivated together will glow faintly." Seal Mudok recalled the past. The love lotus Wayne had brought really had been glowing, but he had never thought much of it, so that was where the secret lay. Since carrying a living flower was inconvenient, the old man suggested turning the love lotus into jewelry to be worn at all times. After hearing everything, Seal Mudok turned and left. "I'll leave the rest to you. I depart in 10 days. Before then, complete all preparations. You will also be rewarded. Each of you shall receive 100 taels of gold." As the sun set, Seal Mudok looked up at the horizon. "Wayan, where exactly are you? I will find you, no matter the cost. The scene shifted, and in a certain stretch of sea, a gigantic sailing ship was cutting swiftly through the waters. Inside the cabin, Seal Mudok wrote with a brush. This was already the 3rd year of his search for Wayne. He had gone to nearly every place marked on the map, yet there was still no trace of her. And during this time, his cultivation had also broken through from the transformation realm to the profound mystery realm. He gripped the pendant at his neck and fell into thought. That year, a peace negotiation initiated by her father had sent Wayne into the abyss. In order to ease the relationship between him and Dame Chana, Wayne chose to risk herself, because she believed that her own father would not harm her. And so Seal Mudok also made the greatest mistake of his life. Before going to the peace talks, Wayne gave Seal Mudok her mother's relic. She said that this necklace possessed a special power. If one day he could not find her, it would guide him back to her side. Wayne said with an innocent smile that this way, they would never be separated. Seal Mudok was filled with regret. He should have stopped her at all costs from the very beginning. Then, over the calm sea, enormous waves suddenly rose as a storm descended. Seal Mudok pushed open the cabin door and walked out. Dense rain and terrifying giant waves crashed toward the sailing ship. The storm was even fiercer than imagined. The ship was struck so violently by the waves that it teetered on the verge of collapse, and passengers were swept into the sea one after another. In the crisis, Seal Mudok used his telekinetic force to control wooden planks. The planks scattered to the sides of those who had fallen into the water, allowing them to stay afloat for the moment. But just then, another towering wave surged in. Feeling that oppressive force, all that remained in the sailor's eyes was despair. Even Seal Mudok could not help but break into a slight cold sweat. It seems I can only use that move. Seal Mudok began gathering power, preparing to freeze the entire sea wave. The sailors instantly felt the air temperature plummet. In a single moment, Seal Mudok's power climbed to its peak. But just then, the pendant on his neck suddenly began to glow faintly. A massive vortex of light suddenly appeared in the sky, and even the gigantic waves were sucked into its terrifying pull. Seal Mudok, standing beneath the pillar of light, was also locked in place by that force in an instant. In the next moment, the vortex of light rapidly withdrew, and the raging storm vanished completely. The people on the ship looked at one another in confusion. What had happened? But no one noticed that Seal Mudok had already disappeared from the ship. The moment he arrived through the crossing, Seal Mudok ran into a group of people being attacked by giant fruit flies. They were nothing more than oversized flies. He cut them down with a casual raise of his hand. Faced with this unfamiliar world, even Seal Mudok felt somewhat at a loss for the moment. Moreover, these people looked like foreigners, so this place had to be extremely far from the Central Plains. He raised his eyes and looked at the swarm of flies dancing wildly in the sky. And Seal Mudok slightly gathered his strength before striking out with a divine palm of ice. All the flies were instantly frozen into blocks of ice. The next second, the ice blocks all exploded at once, bursting in the air like fireworks. This scene left these foreigners completely dumbfounded on the spot. An old man stepped forward to greet Seal Mudok, but Seal Mudok could not understand a single word he said. As expected, a language barrier was troublesome. But the next second, the old man took out a ring. He put on the ring, then made a bizarre and oddly seductive motion. Immediately after that, he was somehow able to understand Seal Mudok's words and began communicating with him. Putting on the ring is one thing, but did you really have to do such a disgusting move? It turned out that this ring could translate languages, and the man before Seal Mudok was named Edmund, the president of the Royal Merchant Guild. He solemnly thanked Seal Mudok. "Thank you for saving our merchant guild, esteemed magic swordsman." Seal Mudok frowned. What was a magic swordsman? Edmund explained that in this world, a magic swordsman was someone who used both swordsmanship and magic. Seal Mudok was even more puzzled. What was magic? Yet Edmund was convinced that the ice Seal Mudok had just fired was magic. Edmund then asked where Seal Mudok had come from. That question nearly made Seal Mudok lose control, because he had no idea how to explain it. You ask too many questions. Seeing Seal Mudok's expression, Edmund trembled in fear. This guy, he isn't really insane, is he? As night fell, Seal Mudok's emotions gradually settled down as well. And the place where he was now was a forest on the way to Barhan, the capital of the Kingdom of Drake. Edmund handed the language translation ring to Seal Mudok and told him how to use it. After putting it on, even Seal Mudok could not help but pause in surprise. Such a thing actually existed. He could actually understand what these foreigners were saying. But suddenly, a violent fluctuation of energy came from Seal Mudok's chest. This energy felt completely different from what he had known in the Central Plains, and his heart sank. He had to test what kind of power this really was. The next moment, Seal Mudok floated directly into the sky above the forest. Then he gathered that special energy into his palm. In the next instant, he released all of the energy at once. The result surprised him. The energy accumulated inside his body had actually doubled. But though he had clearly been in the Central Plains and ended up here, he still could not understand it. Could it be that necklace? Wayan had said that the necklace possessed the power to return to the giver's side, and later Seal Mudok had fused the necklace with the love lotus. If the reason he had been transported here was the necklace's power, then Wayan must also be here. Since he did not know enough about this unfamiliar world, Seal Mudok decided to follow the merchant caravan to the capital, Barhan, first. Faced with Edmund and the others' curiosity, he only explained flatly that he had been cultivating in the mountains all this time and had now come out to see the world. At that moment, a child squeezed out from the crowd, his eyes full of admiration for Seal Mudok. The child's name was Luffy. Though young, he knew a great deal about this world. The shape of this world was strange, and its writing was completely different from that of the Central Plains. Moreover, there were not only humans here, but also races such as elves and dwarves, and even beings similar to beastmen. Among all races, the strongest were creatures called dragons, huge lizards with wings. Most outrageous of all, there was even teleportation magic here. Mages of the fifth circle or above could use magic arrays to instantly travel anywhere, with the distance depending on the mage's strength. This world is truly absurd, Seal Mudok murmured in amazement. He looked up and saw that there were actually 3 moons floating in the sky. At the sight of this, even Seal Mudok had to admit that this place was completely different from the Central Plains. Wayne, was it you who summoned me here? Just then, a burst of commotion suddenly came from the merchant caravan. It turned out that Savina from the caravan had taken her younger sister Annie hostage. 2 men nearby lowered their voices to persuade her. Once we reach the capital, you'll definitely be cured. The capital has the finest magicians. Savina looked on the verge of collapse. The eggs of a shell stinger insect are inside our hearts, and they could hatch into larvae at any moment. How could anyone possibly cure a wound like this? When the eggs hatch, we'll become monsters that are neither human nor beast. Rather than waiting for that moment, it's better to die now while we're still conscious. At that moment, Seal Mudok suddenly appeared. Stop, I roughly understand what is going on with you. I can treat it. Put the dagger away first. Savina stared at him blankly. You really can cure us? Edmund, who had rushed over afterward, looked utterly shocked. Sir Magic Swordsman, could it be that you also know healing magic? Seal Mudok found the old man noisy. I do not understand any healing magic, but I do know certain inherited methods of treatment. I am going to begin treatment now. All of you, step back. Seal Mudok looked at Savina and Annie. Don't be nervous. It won't take long. What you need to do now is close your eyes and relax your bodies. The next second, under the activation of Seal Mudok's inner force, the outlines of their bones faintly appeared. Vast true chi coursed through their meridians. In the next moment, he locked onto the insect eggs in their hearts. Now all he had to do was control his strength, avoid injuring the heart, and burn away the eggs. His inner force moved along the edges of the heart, then suddenly erupted in the next instant. Savina and Annie both let out a long breath at the same time. Seal Mudok stood up, looked at them, and spoke in a calm voice. It's done. The problem has been dealt with. There will be no side effects, so you no longer need to be afraid. Not long after, on a road not far from the capital Barhan, a merchant caravan was slowly making its way forward. The travelers kept complaining along the journey. This damned weather, how can it be this hot? The little boy Luffy handed his water flask to Seal Mudok. Mr. Magic Swordsman, have some water. Seal Mudok lowered his gaze and glanced at it. The weather was too hot, and even the water in the flask had already turned warm. He slightly activated his inner force, and the warm water instantly became a flask of ice-cold water. Now that was something fit to drink. Seal Mudok handed the flask back to Luffy, and the moment Luffy took it, he felt a burst of coolness in his palm. After swallowing a mouthful of ice water, his whole body felt refreshed. The next moment, the little fellow moved close to Seal Mudok. Mr. Magic Swordsman, help me freeze this bottle of water too. The child had helped Seal Mudok quite a bit along the way, so this small favor was naturally nothing. So in the next moment, he activated his inner force again. Luffy held the icy flask in his arms, grinning from ear to ear. But before long, it seemed that everyone in the caravan had heard about it. What a troublesome bunch of brats. Even more annoying, that insufferable Edmund came over to join the fun too and just wouldn't stop. But after drinking Seal Mudok's ice water, Edmund immediately praised it lavishly on the spot. I've drunk ice water all across this continent, and I've never tasted any this good. This left Seal Mudok somewhat puzzled. He had only frozen the water, so the taste should not have changed. But Edmund told him that ordinary mages made ice by using the cold attribute of magical power in the air. During that process, impurities in the magic power would mix into the ice and ruin the taste. But the ice seal Mudok made was exceptionally pure, so it tasted cleaner and smoother to drink. Edmund's eyes lit up, and on the spot he came up with an idea. And just like that, Seal Mudok was forced into becoming the ice maker of the street. Meanwhile, Edmund transformed himself into a sales manager, and they split the profits 40-60, 4 for him, 6 for Seal Mudok. Even more absurdly, the business was actually better than expected. Even the Meiji Merchant Guild, one of the 10 greatest merchant guilds on the continent, came to discuss cooperation. Most unexpectedly, Savina used Seal Mudok's ice to create a new dessert, ice cream. Cold, sweet, and rich, with a flavor Seal Mudok had never tasted before. One serving of such a thing was nowhere near enough, so Seal Mudok wanted Savina to make another one. But just as he reached the doorway, he saw a glaringly unpleasant scene. Several noble youths were driving away the other customers and demanding that Savina serve only them. These people had long been used to acting arrogantly, drawing their swords to threaten others at the slightest provocation. One young man among them was especially striking. His eyes seemed to carry some kind of magic, a power that felt as though it could steal away a person's mind. Seeing this, Edmund hurried out to smooth things over. But the moment Edmund appeared, the youth only grew more excited. "This is an insult to the nobility. You will pay for it with your life." The youth's expression grew even more frenzied as he swung his long sword down at Edmund. Under that strike, Edmund was almost completely powerless to resist. But at that moment, an arm thrust in from the side and forcibly blocked the unstoppable blow. Seal Mudok lightly waved his hand and directly knocked the youth back. That scene enraged the youth completely. He poured his magic power into the longsword. Light and shadow flickered, and the youth's sword became so fast it reached the extreme. But no matter how he swung it, he could not touch even an inch of Seal Mudok. When he once again slashed through Seal Mudok's afterimage, Seal Mudok finally grew tired of it. He did not know where this youth got his confidence from, but with this level of strength, he was unworthy of such arrogance. The next second, Seal Mudok raised one finger and flicked out a stream of force. The force turned into a streak of light and instantly pierced through the youth's wrist. As intense pain struck, the longsword fell from his hand on the spot. The youth clutched his wrist tightly. The pain brought him not the slightest remorse. Instead, his face was filled with resentment. Seal Mudok looked at him and slowly walked closer. The youth did not retreat, but gritted his teeth and struggled to stand up. Seal Mudok said coldly, "You could have stayed down. Why insist on getting back up? Since you want to play, then let me see how long you can last." Faced with the noble pride etched into this youth's very bones, Seal Mudok also decided to make him remember the price. "Your bones may be tough, but let's see whether they stay tough to the end." His eyes turned cold, and killing intent flashed through them. Perhaps I should just kill him outright. But perhaps Wayan's kindness was still restraining him, so in the end Seal Mudok gave them one chance. Still, these children had to be taught a lesson. "Then let me see. Are your bones harder, or is the stick in my hand harder?" As Seal Mudok advanced step by step, the youth's eyes finally shifted from defiance to fear. "Trash like you who think so highly of yourselves, only a stick is the most direct medicine." As night fell, the youth's eyes finally seemed to clear a little as well. "I'm sorry. We were wrong. Please stop. We'll never dare do it again." Some minds can never be changed by words alone. Only pain can make them remember. Meanwhile, inside the castle of the Kingdom of Drake, a secret meeting was taking place. Count's expression was gloomy. "Our informants report that the Kingdom of Serbia has recovered the northern region of the Black Wasteland, and the Kingdom of Hazen is also trying to develop lands beyond the Sahara Desert." Duke Icarus was somewhat surprised. Beyond the desert, monsters ran rampant and humans could hardly gain a foothold. So what methods did the Kingdom of Hazen have? Count spoke in an even heavier tone. "We are not certain for the moment, but we suspect Anos has already been recruited by them." At the mention of the name Anos, fear immediately surfaced on the king's face. The other council members could not help breaking into cold sweat as well. That was because Anos was one of the 10 great sword saints of the continent, and he regarded money as trash. And he seemed to be extremely close to Lake's sister, the current king of Hazen. In other words, the Kingdom of Hazen effectively possessed 2 sword saints at once, and with such power, expansion was inevitable. The more the high-ranking officials thought about it, the more uneasy they became. "Perhaps we should also expand our territory." But the only direction available to them was the Lazar Mountains in the north. That place was frozen for thousands of miles, and without a suitable candidate, no amount of effort would be anything but a waste. In the end, the meeting dispersed without any result. After the meeting ended, the king still remained deeply troubled. Because Duke Icarus was extremely ambitious, and beginning 10 years ago, everyone who opposed him had been sent to the north. The king's heart grew heavy. He stood alone and isolated, and the only person he could trust now was Count. Late in the quiet of night, the king suddenly remembered the delicacy he had heard about during the day, ice cream. Count also said that for a king burdened with countless affairs of state, he would certainly fulfill even such a small request. Meanwhile, Savina came running over to find Seal Mudok with a group of excited children. The children said they wanted to learn magic from him. Seal Mudok could only tell them directly, he did not know magic. What he used was martial arts, called the Divine Palm of Ice. But the children immediately changed their tune. Then they did not want to learn magic, they wanted to learn his martial arts instead. What a troublesome bunch of brats. But looking at their sincere and innocent eyes, Seal Mudok's heart stirred. Perhaps they too have someone they wish to protect. But the most important thing for me is to find Wayne, and the martial arts of the North Sea Divine Palace are never passed on to outsiders. Seal Mudok suppressed his emotions. Come back here at this time tomorrow. Then I will give you my answer. But the children thought he had already agreed. Are you really willing to teach us? We'll never forget this kindness for as long as we live. Seal Mudok was somewhat speechless. He had not even agreed yet, but the children were already running off in excitement. Once the door closed, Seal Mudok could only remain silent. He pushed open the window and stared off alone in a daze. When he had been about their age, perhaps he had also longed for strength in the same way. What child did not want to possess world-shaking power? From the distant forest came the faint sounds of clashing weapons. At that moment, the king and count were equally speechless. They had only wanted to secretly come out for some ice cream, yet they had actually been ambushed. Even worse, among the attackers was a top-tier fire mage. With a casual wave of the mage's hand, 3 fireballs instantly took shape, forcing Count into a difficult defense for a time. The fireball smashed down before Count, erupting in blinding flames. The king watched in burning anxiety. When the firelight dispersed, Count's figure appeared once more. But his arm was obviously badly wounded, and blood flowed from it without stopping. Facing the assassins surging forward, Count immediately ordered the guards to form ranks and meet the attack. The assassins continued pressing in. Let's see who can take the king's head today. The king's guards were naturally no weaklings, and in the blink of an eye, Count struck down one assassin first. But before he could even catch his breath, 2 more assassins swung their swords at him from the same time. Count could only raise his sword swiftly to block. Just then, that mage cast another spell. Count's expression changed drastically, yet he had no way to spare himself. In the next instant, a beam of light descended from the sky, and that mage's body was pierced straight through. Immediately after, a figure stepped down from the air. Looks like I've caught you. This scene instantly put the leader of the assassins on edge. When had this person appeared? The next second, Seal Mudok had already flashed behind him and cleanly dealt with one of his subordinates. Sorry, you were all too noisy, so I had no choice but to come take a look, and I need to settle this before my ice cream melts. The assassin leader panicked inwardly. Someone who could circle behind him in an instant was absolutely no ordinary person. But Seal Mudok had just made a sneak attack, and for a moment they had lost their rhythm. Fortunately, they still had the advantage in numbers. The leader immediately gave the order, kill the king at once and withdraw immediately. Don't complicate matters further. As he spoke, he raised his hand and slashed out an attack. I'll deal with this man myself. But at some point, a great sword had already condensed in Seal Mudok's hand and steadily blocked the strike. Heat glimmered in Seal Mudok's eyes. I did not expect to meet a worthy swordsman even here. Then I shall repay you with the Surayong sword of my North Sea Divine Palace. The assassin leader charged again. It seems you do not wish to live to see tomorrow's sun. Seal Mudok lowered his head and looked at the Surayong sword. Now this is what battle should be. I hope you do not disappoint me. Bring out all your strength. The next second, he raised his sword and blocked the attack once more. The assassin's eyes split with fury as his long blade thrust in fiercely. Seal Mudok merely shifted his body slightly and avoided the fatal attack. In the next moment, the blade shadow spun, and another long weapon somehow appeared in the assassin's hand. With twin blades in hand, he leaped into the air, and both blades slashed downward with cold flashes of light. Seal Mudok merely raised his sword and flicked upward, forcing back his assault. Immediately after, Seal Mudok turned his wrist and followed with another sword strike in reverse. Sword shadows crossed, and when Seal Mudok swung his third strike, the man's life was severed completely. At some point, a light rain had begun to fall from the sky, and this scene left the king and Count too stunned to speak. The masked assassin's expressions could not be seen, but one of them muttered in a trembling voice, could he be the legendary sword saint? Yet at that moment Seal Mudok's face darkened. It's all your fault. My ice cream must have melted in the rain. The assassins looked baffled. What was ice cream? But the next second, all of them burst into motion at once and lunged at Seal Mudok together. Sword shadows overlapped heavily as 6 assassins closed in from the side. But at that very moment, Seal Mudok's protective true chi exploded outward, and the sharp long swords could no longer advance even half an inch. At the same time, he slightly raised the Surayong sword in his hand. Driven by inner force, a faint halo emerged around the Surayong sword, and a fierce freezing gale erupted around him. Sword chi wrapped in icy inner force swept outward in one horizontal strike, and the 6 assassins were killed on the spot. The next moment, Seal Mudok sheathed his sword, as if nothing had happened at all. Under the king's and count's stunned gaze, Seal Mudok turned into a streak of light and left in an instant. He just left like that. The king suddenly spoke. "We are out of time. We must find that man." Count clenched his fist, his voice steady and resolute. "Leave it to me, your majesty." The scene shifted, and Edmund sat behind piles of account books. Learning magic? The red-haired man standing beside him reported. "Yes, they are learning magic." "Is Mr. Magic Swordsman teaching them?" "That's right." The red-haired man sounded sour. "There are also many people in our family who want to learn magic, so why does he only teach those 4 children? Edmund let out a strange laugh. For in his view, those few children had simply stumbled into unbelievably great fortune. After all, people who wanted to learn magic were everywhere, but those who could truly learn it were pitifully few. He stood up. "Where are they studying? Lead the way. It seems the day our merchant guild rises will come even earlier than expected." Not long afterward, the two found Seal Mudok in the woods and wanted to thank him in person, but Seal Mudok could not understand a word they were saying. "I heard that Mr. Magic Swordsman is teaching our children magic." Only then did Seal Mudok understand. That was what the recent whispering in the merchant guild had been about. Edmund suddenly began sniffling. "I sincerely thank you from the bottom of my heart. How can I ever repay you?" Just then, a man with glasses ran over to report, "Sir Magic Swordsman, a guest has arrived." All 3 of them looked in the same direction at once, and a man dressed in magnificent clothes walked over, his eyes red and his hands clenched so tightly they had turned pale. He dropped to his knees with a thud. "Sir Magic Swordsman, please save me, your servant chief. His Majesty said that if I still fail to bring you back today, then I'm finished." Edmund and his attendant's expressions changed drastically. The chief attendant? His Majesty? Could it be the king? Seal Mudok kicked him aside, but the man still clung tightly to his leg. "Please, you absolutely must not refuse His Majesty's invitation." Anger surged in Seal Mudok's eyes. "Once or twice I can tolerate, but why do you come bother me every single day? Stop wasting your effort and go back." Seal Mudok turned and left. Because for him, all he wanted now was to find clues about Win. He took out the purple crystal from his clothes, and his thoughts were pulled back to the past, to the memory of their meeting and their love, the best time of his entire life. As long as he thought of Wayan, even the most irritated heart would slowly calm down. But at that moment, the children's shouts rang out and interrupted his thoughts. "Wayan, wait for me. I will find you." The scene shifted to inside the castle of the Kingdom of Drake. The king sat behind his desk, his voice sinking. He refused again? The chief attendant bowed deeply. "My deepest apologies, Your Majesty." The king felt that Seal Mudok was being far too arrogant. Originally, he had wanted to summon him over and reward him properly. Seeing the king's grim expression, the chief attendant hurriedly declared in fear, "I'll go again tomorrow." At that moment, an announcement came from outside the door. "Your Majesty, Princess Ishilda has arrived." The king's expression changed instantly, and he straightened his hair. "Fine, you may get lost now." The chief attendant turned and withdrew, brushing past Princess Ishilda as she entered. "Come here, Ishilda." Hearing his voice, Princess Ishilda stepped forward and bowed. "Father," the chief attendant looked terrible. "Did something happen?" The king then briefly told her about the attempt on his life. The moment Ishilda heard it, she grabbed his hand. "Father, are you all right? Were you hurt?" The king held her hand and smiled somewhat stiffly. "Don't worry. I'm still alive, and that's enough." "But why did that magic swordsman refuse your invitation?" Even the king himself could not explain it clearly. Ishilda fell into thought. Anyone father values this much must be extraordinary. The king nodded. Extraordinary hardly began to cover it. "You know how the Roll Merchant Guild has recently become wildly popular because of ice and something called ice cream, right? I heard the guild mage who made those things is the very person who saved me. Knowing that only makes me want to keep him by my side even more." Ishilda understood at once. A talent like that, anyone would want to recruit him. She scooped up a spoonful of ice cream and put it into her mouth. And in a very next second, she was completely struck by the taste. The person who made something this delicious is the one father is searching for. Just what kind of man is he? Her gaze shifted toward the window, and fell on 2 children eating ice cream. Her eyes darkened slightly, and a thought formed in her mind. Should I take this chance to go meet him myself? The scene shifted again. Seal Mudok looked at the children as pale blue energy swirled around their bodies. After only half a month of teaching, they could already release true chi outward. That's not strange. After all, the energy here is far denser than in the Central Plains. He clapped his hands. "That's enough for today. It seems you can already control true chi skillfully. No, rather, you can already control magic power properly. Next, we enter the next stage. At that moment, a familiar and irritating voice came from behind him. Sir Magic Swordsman. History repeated itself, except this time, the chief attendant had brought someone else with him. Seal Mudok had intended to refuse as usual, but the purple crystal on his chest suddenly lit up. He stared ahead in disbelief, and saw the visitor slowly remove her hood. That's right, the person who had come was Princess Ishilda. Seal Mudok's hands were trembling. I finally found you, Wayne. The scene shifted again, and everyone returned indoors. Ishilda was the first to break the silence. You saved my father's life, didn't you? Seal Mudok tried to appear graceful. It was only by chance. But to Ishilda's ears, those words sounded like arrogance. A trace of anger appeared on Ishilda's face. I heard that my father invited you to the palace many times to express his gratitude. Why have you kept refusing my father? Seal Mudok looked at Ishilda before him. She looked almost exactly like Wayne. He lifted his teacup and took a light sip. I understand. When is he available to see me? Ishilda froze for a moment. Just like that? You agreed that easily? Seal Mudok's gaze made her feel a little uncomfortable. Since you are the one inviting me, you only need to tell me the time. Ishilda felt even stranger about it. Then, tomorrow at 11 in the morning. Just come on time. After that, she stood to leave. Then I'll see you then. After Ishilda left, Seal Mudok felt uneasy instead. She was the king's daughter, the highest-ranking person in the country, and she seemed to have no memory at all of the past. So how was he supposed to get close to her, let alone marry her and bring her back to his side? In the next moment, Seal Mudok's eyes darkened. Perhaps he needed Edmund's help. After hearing his thoughts, Edmund's expression changed drastically. Have you lost your mind? Princess Ishilda is the only child of the late Swan Queen and the sole legitimate heir to the throne. A man like you, with no status and no achievements, wants to marry the princess? At the very least, the princess's suitors must be princes of foreign kingdoms or heirs of great noble families. After hearing Edmund's words, Seal Mudok lowered his head and thought, if he acquired a sufficiently noble status or achievements great enough, would that qualify him to pursue her? No matter what, this was a path he had to take. But then Edmund stopped him again. Do you know the rules of the royal palace? So Edmund brought Seal Mudok into the library. You need to learn proper etiquette from these books. Tonight, I'll teach you everything from beginning to end. But why is this guy so excited? After a sleepless night, Seal Mudok set out in full formal dress the next day. I hope what I'm wearing today won't make Ishilda dislike me. Inside the royal palace, the king gave Seal Mudok an extremely warm welcome. But what he never expected was this. Wasn't this supposed to be a private meeting? Why are there so many people here? Ishilda also looked apologetic. I'm sorry, I didn't know there would be so many officials present today. Seeing how flustered she was, Seal Mudok understood that this had not been her arrangement. At that moment, Seal Mudok saw the young man he had beaten before. It turned out he was the son of Duke Icarus. Seal Mudok's heart sank. Why is this idiot here too? The young man recognized Seal Mudok as well, and fury instantly surged through him as he stood up. It's that damned bastard from before. But in the next second, his father barked coldly, sit down. Do you want to make a fool of yourself in public? As if all the strength had been drained from him, the youth sat back down in his chair in humiliation. The king exchanged a few quiet words with Count. Then the king gave a light cough. Magic Swordsman, why did you suddenly accept my invitation after all? Seal Mudok explained at an unhurried pace. I have been too busy recently. The Roll Merchant Guild is short-handed, and I am the busiest of all, because I must keep producing ice. Orders keep coming in, and the demand for ice far exceeds production, so I only managed to free myself today. The king looked pleased. Your ice and ice cream truly are selling very well. That can count as your reason for being unable to see me sooner. Seal Mudok secretly felt delighted. This king seemed fairly easy to deal with, far better than Dam Chana. The king continued, thank you for saving me last time. I will grant you a title of nobility. The first time I saw you, I already thought of a title suited to you, and now, I will confer it personally. Sir Magic Swordsman, step forward. Seal Mudok stepped forward and knelt on one knee to receive the investiture. The king drew his sword. I, Malova, king of the kingdom of Drake, hereby declare. Today I grant this brave man, who saved both me and my subjects, the title of Baron, and bestow upon him the name, Blizzard. This name shall be passed down for generations to come, for as long as the kingdom of Drake endures. Rise, Baron Blizzard. The king lightly tapped Seal Mudok's shoulder. If not for you, I would not be standing here today. Please allow me to express my gratitude once more. Seal Mudok returned the gesture with a bow. If the same thing were to happen again, I would still make the same choice. At that moment, Duke Icarus suddenly spoke. Baron Blizzard saved His Majesty's life. I believe that along with the title, he should also be granted a corresponding fief. Duke Icarus's gaze was cold, and his words were edged like thorns. The king fell into thought. A fief itself was not difficult, but the difficulty was that there was no suitable territory to grant at present. Duke Icarus's expression darkened even further. Has your majesty forgotten the northern glacial lands mentioned at the meeting a few days ago? We are in need of sending a lord there, and Baron Blizzard is the most suitable. Even his name suits the land of ice, and the north is currently in the midst of a snowstorm, an auspicious sign. The moment this proposal was made, the king's expression changed drastically. Beside him, Ishilda also grew tense. The northern territory was a place no one wanted to go. Seal Mudok looked toward Ishilda in confusion. Are they really sending him north to be a lord? But in the next second, he understood. Icarus was abusing public office for personal revenge, using the matter with his son as an excuse to drive him away. In the next moment, Seal Mudok smiled instead. If that was the case, then he would use this opportunity to earn merit and shorten the distance between himself and her. News that Seal Mudok was about to head to the northern frontier quickly spread throughout the town, and Edmund explained anxiously, snowstorms there never cease all year round. Avalanches happen constantly, and under that extreme cold, magic power becomes highly unstable. Are you really going north? Seal Mudok took a sip of tea. Don't worry, I'm not afraid of the cold. As for unstable magic power, it actually sounds interesting. Edmund looked baffled. Sir Magic Swordsman, are you some kind of snowman? Seal Mudok frowned. Snowman? A legendary creature, said since ancient times to live only in the north. They look human, stand nearly 3 meters tall, and are said to possess astonishing strength. Edmund shivered. They are not afraid of the cold, and their temperament is savage. But no one has ever really seen one, so it may just be a legend. There is another rumor, though, that the people of the north can each fight 100 men. That is also why they hate being ruled and acknowledge no lord. Seal Mudok smiled. That makes it even more interesting. If I can gain the recognition of the northerners, my prestige will rise with it. He pushed open the door, only to find the children all standing outside with red-rimmed eyes. Why are all of you here? A voice rang out from the woods. No, for you, who have only just begun learning martial arts, the north is far too dangerous. Master, we still have so much left to learn. If you leave, who are we supposed to learn magic power from? Several children clung to Seal Mudok, their voices full of pleading. Seal Mudok let out a sigh, then suddenly noticed that Ishilda was standing in the back. Ishilda was clutching the corner of her clothes, clearly uneasy, and seeing that her expression was poor, Seal Mudok asked what was wrong. Her gaze swept over the children. I want to send the children away first, then talk. Seal Mudok did not hesitate and immediately drove the children off. The two children looked at each other, neither willing to move first. The girl asked carefully, then does this mean you've agreed to our request? The boy shouted after him, answer us. If you don't answer, we won't leave. Seal Mudok's voice tightened. Fine, I agree. Now go at once. The children instantly cheered and ran off laughing. Ishilda watched the retreating figures. Your disciples are very lively. Seal Mudok shook his head. That's not liveliness. That's rebellion. He turned and revealed a faint smile. Do you feel better now? Ishilda lowered her eyes. A little better. And, I'm very sorry. It was because I asked Father to grant you a title that you ended up being sent to the northern frontier. That apology was far too familiar, and another face overlapped with hers in Seal Mudok's mind. Wayne had once apologized in just the same way. Seal Mudok pulled his thoughts back to the present. If I had not accepted the title, I would not be going north. Ishilda trembled slightly. So, it's my fault. Seal Mudok gave a light cough, too adorable for words. An apology won't change anything. In any case, I have to go eventually. Ishilda looked even guiltier. Is there anything I can do to put your mind at ease? Seal Mudok turned his face aside. I heard that before setting out, receiving some kind of lucky token, or charm, is enough. Ishilda looked completely puzzled. A lucky token? What is that? Seal Mudok leaned closer to her. I've heard that it's a kiss filled with sincere concern. Ishilda's pupils widened. A kiss? Ishilda suddenly stepped back. Wait. Seal Mudok looked at her reaction. It seems I shouldn't have said that. He turned around. I need to go prepare for my departure. Your Highness may pretend I said nothing. Ishilda was momentarily at a loss. You say whatever you want, and then just leave. As she looked at the man's figure gradually receding into the distance, an inexplicable sense of familiarity suddenly welled up in her heart. Please wait. In the next moment, her eyes darkened, as if she had finally made up her mind. A farewell kiss before departure, so close they could hear each other breathe. Love hid between lips and teeth, pressing even parting into sweetness. And Seal Mudok froze on the spot, like a fool who had never been in love before. Watching Ishilda flee in embarrassment, Seal Mudok made a vow in his heart as well. He would definitely return in triumph. The scene shifted again, and a blizzard swept through a northern town. Inside a tavern, someone lowered his voice and said, a new lord is coming. I heard he saved the king, so he was granted land and title. I heard he defeated 100 men by himself in an instant. A burly man with a fleshy face laughed loudly. I heard he's also a sixth circle mage, and his swordsmanship is deep enough to rival a sword master. Another person sneered. If he's really that powerful, why would he come to a place like this? Someone in the corner said coldly, isn't it obvious? He must have offended Duke Icarus and been thrown here. At the end of the day, these were all just rumors. Wouldn't it all end the same way? A little intimidation, and he'd tuck in his tail and run away. Meanwhile, in the snowfields of the northern domain, a man and a woman gripped their weapons, their faces tense. They were being hunted by a furious wyvern. Both of them felt chilled with regret. They had only wanted to steal a few eggs, and now they were about to lose their lives over it. In the chaos, the girl tripped over a rock and fell into the snow, seemingly injured. But when she saw the man running ahead of her, her pupils suddenly contracted. The wyvern opened its huge mouth full of sharp teeth and had already closed in behind the man. The man's face was filled with despair as he could only run forward with all his might. This time, I'm really dead. At the very instant of despair, a man in white suddenly appeared and raised his hand to unleash a slash of sword chi. Wrapped in a freezing gale, the sword chi cut straight through the wyvern's body. The wyvern's corpse crashed heavily to the ground right in front of the girl. In the wind and snow, Seal Mudo quietly appeared. You too, are you alright? The girl forced herself to answer, I'm alright, thank you for saving us. Seal Mudok's expression remained calm. No need to thank me. I merely did what a lord should do. After speaking, he turned and left. Since you're fine, we'll meet again next time. Before they could reply, Seal Mudok had already turned into a streak of white light and vanished into the wind and snow. The girl cried out in shock. So fast, he disappeared in the blink of an eye. But soon, they discovered something even more frustrating. The wyvern eggs were all gone. Not long after, inside the palace of the Northern Territory, Seal Mudok sat in the main hall with a gloomy expression. Today is my inauguration ceremony, yet the entire hall is completely empty. Didn't they receive the notice? The attendant below looked uneasy. My apologies, my lord. I will send messengers again to notify every village. Seal Mudok raised a hand to stop him. No need. Since they won't come, don't notify them again. This was clearly a show of defiance from the Caloran people directed at Seal Mudok. And he finally understood why one former lord after another had been driven away. A smile lifted at the corner of Seal Mudok's mouth. He had a way. Several days later, inside a house, a few bruised and battered men were gathered around their leader, complaining. That lord is absurdly fast, and the moment he touches me, I can't move at all. The worst part is how viciously he hits. It's impossible to describe. At that moment, a man rushed in hurriedly. The lord is here. He's in the village square. Marcus turned back with a cold smile. So he's here already? Fine, I'll go meet him. He pushed open the door. The greatest warrior of Caloran also wanted to see what kind of person this new lord really was. The square was crowded with people coming and going, while Seal Mudok stood among them with an indifferent expression. A girl took the initiative to greet Seal Mudok. She was the very girl he had saved last time. Marcus noticed the girl as well. It turned out he was her father. The girl looked at Marcus. I went to steal frost wyvern eggs and got chased by the wyvern. It was the lord who saved me. Marcus was put in an awkward position on the spot. The lord had saved his daughter Rhea, and just moments ago he had intended to teach the man a lesson. But he quickly began weighing the matter again. The wyvern Seal Mudok had killed was definitely no ordinary one, and even a Caloran warrior could not kill it so easily. The situation suddenly became tricky. As Caloran's strongest warrior, he found himself forced to take this man seriously. He extended his hand toward Seal Mudok. Hello, I am Caloran's strongest warrior, Marcus. Faced with that arrogance, Seal Mudok did not take his hand. I am the new lord, Baron Blizzard. Marcus's brows sank. I've heard the rumors about you. I also heard that you've been going around the village beating people one by one lately. Is that true? Seal Mudok replied calmly, not beating them. I was merely disciplining those who wanted to rebel. In the next moment, Seal Mudok's gaze turned cold. Do you also want to rebel like them? Marcus instantly felt an invisible pressure bearing down on him. Just then, Seal Mudok suddenly made a proposal. Caloran is bitterly cold, and from ancient times to now, you have endured winter by relying on strong liquor. You are the strongest warrior, so your alcohol tolerance should not be poor. Do you dare compete with me in drinking? If I win, you must acknowledge me as your lord and obey me absolutely. The crowd began murmuring in low voices. He wants to outdrink Marcus? Isn't that just asking to die? Marcus was extremely confident in his drinking capacity, so he agreed on the spot and said he would keep his word. Before the drinking table, Marcus took off his coat, revealing his powerful muscles. My lord, if you want to back out now, there's still time. Seal Mudok looked at him coldly. Once I speak, I do not take it back. Begin. After several rounds of drinks, Marcus was already looking at Seal Mudok with unfocused eyes. The villagers beside them grew anxious. "Marcus, are you alright? You look drunk." Rhea also stepped forward to persuade him. "Stop drinking, really, stop drinking." But Marcus still forced himself on. "I can still drink. More." Under the shocked gazes of his daughter and the villagers, Marcus finally collapsed headfirst, drunk beyond awareness. The two unlucky subordinates beside him were dumbfounded. Caloran's strongest warrior had actually lost. Seeing Marcus fall, Seal Mudok slowly rose to his feet. "All of you present, gather at my castle on time 5 days from now. I expect you to keep your word." 5 days later, Seal Mudok sat in the Great Hall, looking at the Caloran people below. "It seems you people are fairly trustworthy after all." Marcus stood at the very front of the group, staring coldly at Seal Mudok. "Of course I honor my bets and accept my losses." In the next second, Seal Mudok's expression turned serious. "Since you're all here, I'll speak plainly. Starting now, you have 10 days to prepare to move." The moment those words came out, the crowd instantly erupted. Rhea could not help asking, "Do you mean that all of us are supposed to move into your castle and live there?" Seal Mudok's eyes darkened. "There are so many of you. Do you think this castle can hold everyone? What I mean is, we are moving farther north. I've already surveyed the area over the past 5 days, and there is a place there large enough to accommodate over 10,000 people." A commotion immediately broke out among the crowd. Marcus objected in a deep voice, "We know the place you're talking about, but that is where the ice ogres live." Seal Mudok asked back bluntly, "You mean that group of bald creatures as big as bears who walk on 2 legs? Marcus's expression changed. "You ran into them?" Seal Mudok smiled even more coldly. "Do you think I merely ran into them? I have already dealt with every last one of them." That news made everyone's scalp go numb. Seal Mudok rested both hands on his knees. "So what are you still afraid of? If you're not afraid, then prepare to move." When the meeting ended, the people gradually left the castle. After days of constant traveling and surveying, even Seal Mudok was somewhat tired, and he raised a hand to stretch his body. At that moment, he heard someone below greeting him. It was Rhea and the villager Jack, the people he had saved last time. Seal Mudok looked at them, seeming to have long guessed why they had come. "Good timing. I wanted to find you as well. Come with me." After killing the frost wyvern last time, the wyvern egg Seal Mudok had taken away had already hatched into baby wyverns. Rhea gritted her teeth in anger. "So it was you, my lord, who stole the eggs that day. How could you do that?" Seal Mudok turned back to look at her. "If I hadn't saved you that day, what would have happened to you?" That single sentence left the two of them speechless. But these baby wyverns were giving Seal Mudok a headache. "Take these noisy little things back." He had originally wanted to raise them and see what happened, but the little creatures could eat endlessly, make endless trouble, and were especially noisy. He was nearly being driven mad by them. But the news Rhea brought gave him an even worse headache. After hatching, wyvern hatchlings treat the first being they see as their mother, which meant that the mother they recognized was Seal Mudok, and he had no choice but to keep raising them. Rhea, however, felt that he was acting like someone complaining after getting a huge bargain. Frost wyverns were extremely powerful in both size and combat ability, and the chance to tame them was something one could only hope to encounter by luck. At that point Jack added, "As long as you tame one wyvern, you can easily fly to Skirton. That's the second capital of the Kingdom of Gaia, 1,000 kilometers from Caloran, and it has everything. Traveling back and forth on a wyvern would take at most 1 or 2 hours." Hearing this, Seal Mudok was inwardly shaken. Wyverns could actually be this fast. His expression darkened as he began to think, how should he tame these creatures? In the next moment, excitement lit up in his eyes. He had thought of an excellent method. The scene shifted, and on the migration route, the wind and snow were fierce. At that moment, Savina ran over to report to Seal Mudok. "Everyone is too exhausted. After traveling non-stop for 3 days and 3 nights, they're nearly at their limit." Seal Mudok looked toward the group. He knew that exhaustion was only the surface issue. The real problem was that some people still did not trust him. Seal Mudok raised his voice and shouted to everyone, "We're almost at our destination. When we get there, your opinions will completely change. No matter how hard it is, please trust me. Just hold on a little longer." 2 villagers muttered quietly in the back, "We don't even know where we're going, and we're not even sure the ice ogres are really gone." Seal Mudok's expression suddenly flared with anger. "I already told you long ago that I've wiped those creatures out completely. People like you still dare call yourselves Caloran warriors?" After speaking, he turned and continued forward. Savina stared blankly at Seal Mudok, stunned by the oppressive force from just now. Seal Mudok turned back and smiled at her. "Don't worry. Once we get there, everyone will understand." But Savina only stared blankly at his back, her expression complicated, no one knowing what she was thinking. After a long and difficult journey, they finally reached their destination. Looking at the enormous cave before them, the people could not contain their excitement. The Caloran people were especially thrilled. The cave was as warm as spring inside, and even the spring water was warm. Seal Mudok looked at everyone. From today onward, this will be your residence. Since you're going to live here, it should have a name. Seal Mudok closed his eyes for a moment. The place where he had once lived was called the North Sea Divine Palace, so he chose a similar name. In the next moment, he raised his hand and declared, "From this moment on, this place shall be called White Ice Castle." The people all wore different expressions, but in the end, none of them objected. Meanwhile, deep within the cave, a flash of magical light shot out and struck Seal Mudok's baby wyverns, and the little creatures collapsed on the spot. From the darkness, a figure muttered in a low voice, "Strange, why would there be wyverns here?" But in the next second, a voice sounded behind him, "I find it strange too. Why is there a mage here?" Seal Mudok appeared silently behind him, and flicked a strand of piercingly cold true chi from his fingertips. The mage had no time to react before the true chi struck him, freezing his whole body so that he could not move. Seal Mudok dropped down from above and pinned him to the ground with one foot. He lowered his head and stared coldly at the man. "Give me a reason. Otherwise, I will not hold back." Unexpectedly, this man turned out to be Count Jerome, the former Lord of the North. Even more absurdly, after revealing his identity, he still wanted to place himself on equal footing with Seal Mudok. Seal Mudok merely circulated a trace of inner force in his palm, and the oppressive pressure alone turned Jerome's face deathly pale. "You failed even to fulfill a lord's basic duty, and you think you deserve to stand as my equal? If you still refuse to be honest, I have no objection to killing you right now. Now heal every baby wyvern you injured, then come see me. I have many things for you to do." Jerome looked bewildered. "You have many things for me to do. What does that mean?" Seal Mudok smiled faintly. "You are the former lord, and you know magic. If you stay by my side, you are useful." After saying that, he turned and left, giving the man no chance to argue. After Seal Mudok left, Jerome slumped to the ground. "Damn it, I've offended someone I can't afford to offend." And just like that, the former lord became Seal Mudok's personal secretary. Seal Mudok had him write a letter to the king requesting tax exemption. The north was bitterly cold, and surviving here at all was difficult. Jerome shook his head. "The other nobles will certainly object. They'll say it's unfair. Once the king agrees, they'll use it as an excuse to threaten to stop paying taxes as well. No matter how highly his majesty thinks of you, he will definitely refuse." Hearing this, Seal Mudok understood even more clearly that the problem truly lay with the nobles. Especially Duke Icarus, the one who had sent him here. Even the king seemed like his puppet on strings. Since that was the case, this matter could only be put aside for now, and Jerome finally breathed a sigh of relief. Seal Mudok instead pushed forward with another plan and quietly told it to Jerome. Jerome froze after hearing it. Will this really work? Seal Mudok's expression turned serious. Given the current situation, this is the only thing we can try first. Follow my plan and start preparing immediately. Inside the Great Hall, the Caloran people received orders to assemble. They were completely confused. Why had the Lord suddenly summoned everyone? From the high platform, Seal Mudok called out loudly, "Is everyone here?" Marcus and his daughter stood at the very front, both looking wary. Ruya could not help asking, "We came fully armed as you ordered. But what exactly did you gather us here to do?" A bright light shone in Seal Mudok's eyes. "To hunt frost wyverns. The objective, wyvern eggs." The crowd immediately began murmuring, "Those monsters are too strong. Even stealing their eggs is harder than reaching the heavens." Seal Mudok directly announced the arrangement. For safety, 30 men to a team, with egg theft as the primary objective. Jerome will hand out the roster. Those who succeed will be rewarded. The team that brings back the most wyvern eggs will receive 100 gold coins. The moment such a heavy reward was announced, the people below instantly had their blood stirred. Even Marcus's eyes lit up, and he said he was very interested. Then it settled. The Caloran people made ready to depart, while Seal Mudok called Jerome aside and instructed him. For the next 10 days, Jerome had to keep watch over every team and identify those with real talent. Seal Mudok intended to gather them together and use them elsewhere. Jerome immediately understood. "My lord intends to form an elite force, something like a night order?" Seal Mudok was slightly surprised. This man's mind really did move fast. Jerome had also carried out the task he had just been given cleanly and efficiently, so keeping him at his side had indeed been the right choice. It was perfectly reasonable for a lord to possess his own night order, especially since Duke Icarus's Lion Knights were the strongest and could even rival the Royal Knights. "It won't be long before I forge the strongest night order of my own. I finally found Wayne's reincarnation. This time, I cannot lose her again." Then Seal Mudok declared in the Great Hall, "From this moment on, everyone, move out." The scene shifted. In the frozen land, the Caloran people were frantically pursuing a frost wyvern. Marcus truly lived up to his title as Caloran's strongest warrior. Relying on physical strength alone, he could clash head-on with a frost wyvern. Marcus roared, "Now, second row, cast the net." A giant net crashed down from the sky. In an instant, the frost wyvern was tightly trapped under it. Seal Mudok and Jerome stood on the mountaintop looking down. The days of hunting had caused these people to coordinate more and more like an army. Jerome still found it unbelievable. Seal Mudok actually intended to steal wyvern eggs and raise them from childhood. Once they were successfully tamed, the frost wyverns could be used to transport hunting spoils to distant cities, bringing in terrifyingly high profits. Even more frightening was the fact that he had twisted the unruly Caloran warriors into a single united force. Every time Jerome thought of that, he could not help feeling chilled. Jerome said, "Aside from Marcus, there's another young man who is also very strong. Almost every final killing blow during the hunts depends on him to finish the wyvern." This surprised Seal Mudok somewhat as well. Who exactly had been the one to split open the wyvern with that sword strike just now? Jerome immediately pulled out the records to check. The man was called Gale Shuyad, a commoner hero who robbed the rich to help the poor. He had once been framed and thrown into prison. After escaping, he wandered from place to place until finally ending up here. Seal Mudok was a little surprised, so he was not a Caloran tribesman after all. But he got along well with the tribespeople and looked like someone who could be put to use. Seal Mudok ordered, "Aside from this kid, Jerome, investigate whether there are any other people who fled here as well, and organize it all into a detailed report for me." Jerome's brow twitched. The workload had just been doubled by force again. Inside the Great Hall, Seal Mudok wore the rare expression of clear pleasure. "Thanks to all of you hunting with all your strength, we have already collected enough wyvern eggs. Now, I will hand out your rewards." The moment they heard the word rewards, the Caloran people burst into cheers. But then Marcus raised a hand to signal everyone to be quiet. It was true that they had brought the eggs back, but what they wanted even more to know was, what was all this for? Seal Mudok's eyes gleamed. He knew they were all waiting for an answer. He said it plainly, "When frost wyverns hatch, they treat the first person they see as their mother." Seal Mudok intended to tame them personally and use them as transport. These wyverns would carry goods on their backs and deliver spoils to all corners of the world. There were many kinds of spoils, but leather was the most valuable. And the most important commodity of all was ice ogre leather. The Caloran people changed color on the spot. "Ice ogres? Are you asking us to go die?" Seal Mudok looked at everyone. "Some time ago, weren't the ice ogres entrenched here just wiped out by me?" Then his tone lowered, and killing intent seeped through. "Do you think I would stand by and watch you get used as feed?" That sentence hit them hard, and the expressions of the crowd wavered. Indeed, before, without a lord, they had only been able to rely on their own lives to endure. Now things were different. In the next moment, the crowd erupted with a fervent response. "We swear to follow you to the death." Just as Seal Mudok was about to continue handing out rewards, hurried footsteps sounded from the doorway. The person who came was Leo, Seal Mudok's disciple, and Seal Mudok frowned. "We're in the middle of discussing important matters. Why are you panicking?" Leo was so out of breath he could barely speak in full sentences. "Something terrible has happened. Sister Savina, she's dying." Seal Mudok's heart suddenly sank. "Lead the way, now." Somewhere on the ice field, Annie and Luffy were guarding the collapsed Savina, completely panicked. Then at last, they saw that familiar figure hurrying over. Seal Mudok stepped closer, his voice calm in a frightening way. "Move aside. I'll do it." But after checking Savina's condition, his expression grew darker. It was far more serious than he had imagined. "Why did she end up like this? Tell me everything, without leaving out a single word." It turned out that while helping the villagers search for a wyvern nesting ground, they had discovered a large field of flowers. Blooming across it were crystal ice flowers, which they had only ever seen in books. Savina had liked them so much that she picked a few to bring back. But on the way back, she suddenly collapsed. Seal Mudok slowly pried open Savina's hand. "This crystal ice flower you mentioned, what exactly is it?" But the flower made his heart jolt. It was far too familiar. This so-called crystal ice flower was nothing other than the snowfrost flower. This was an extremely rare spiritual medicine in both the Central Plains and the North Sea. So how could it appear in this world? Seal Mudok suppressed his excitement. This was not a disaster, but an opportunity. Carry her back first. But the urgent priority was to save her. The fruit of the crystal ice flower was a one-of-a-kind spiritual medicine. But to consume it, one had to withstand the extreme cold chi contained within it. The reason Savina had collapsed was that her ice inner force was still insufficient and she simply could not endure such cold poison. Seal Mudok fed her the fruit while circulating his inner force to dispel the cold poison for her. Savina, who had been radiating chilling cold just moments ago, finally opened her eyes. Seal Mudok did not stop. Since she had awakened, he would take the opportunity to help her consolidate the heart method he had taught her. Savina understood at once, held her breath, focused her mind, and began circulating her inner force. After several circulation cycles, the cold chi in her body was compressed and condensed, finally forming an inner core. Seal Mudok relaxed slightly in his heart. She was far stronger now than before. And the effects of the crystal ice flower had exceeded expectations. Even Seal Mudok himself could benefit from it. He decided to make time to personally visit the flower field. Perhaps it could raise his cultivation by another level. Meanwhile, Jerome also handed over a list, and Seal Mudok officially decided to establish his own Night Order. The name of the Night Order, the Blizzard Knights. And for the position of commander, he directly gave it to the strongest performer, Shuyet. Next, they still had to build schools and hospitals, as well as restaurants, taverns, and various other facilities, and Seal Mudok would reassign everyone's duties according to their abilities. This was a massive undertaking, so Seal Mudok assigned Osborne to the White Ice Castle security force, with Jerome serving as his aide. Faced with Jerome's hypocritical attempts to decline, Seal Mudok responded with only one cold sentence, "You little bastard, are you trying to disobey my orders?" In the next second, Jerome instantly changed his tune. He would give it his all. In addition, Seal Mudok established 2 more guard units. One was responsible for the outer defenses of White Ice Castle, while also searching the entire Caloran territory and bringing back all residents scattered in various places. Seal Mudok himself would temporarily serve as captain of that guard unit. The other was the Wyvern Riders. But at present, there were not enough giant wyverns suitable for riding, so they could only stand by for the time being. Seal Mudok looked at Rhea. The commander of the Wyvern Riders would be her. Once their numbers stabilized, the remaining wyvern eggs would be handed over to the Caloran merchant group for use, and with that, the meeting was adjourned. Several days later, the late Jerome complained all the way there, feeling that Seal Mudok really ought to reduce his workload a little. He said to everyone, "Sorry, I'm late again." His gaze swept across the room, but he suddenly froze. Why was Savina here too? Hadn't this girl been seriously ill not long ago? How was she suddenly sitting here? Seal Mudok motioned for Jerome to sit down, then signaled for Osborne to continue speaking. Not long after the security force had been established, the prison already held over 20 people, half of them fugitives who had fled in from other areas. Marcus grew emotional. Lawless criminals like these should all be locked up. Seal Mudok coldly shot back, "If anyone should be locked up first, it should be you. You were the one who drove away the former Lord Jerome, weren't you?" Marcus immediately defended himself. "We were protecting Caloran and preventing the central nobles from harming us. That was self-defense." Seal Mudok pressed his gaze down on him. "When you do it, it's called noble resistance, but when Commander Shuyet does it, he's called a thief." Marcus immediately apologized to Shuyet. "That's not what I meant." Shuyet, himself a fugitive, also spoke. "A great many things cannot be judged only by the surface. Let's set this matter aside for now." At that moment, Savina stood up. "May I say a few words as well?" Seal Mudok nodded. Savina looked straight at Seal Mudok. "Since the village's negative feelings toward fugitives are so strong, then for the upcoming ogre hunts, how about letting them take the lead?" With that one sentence, the whole room fell silent. But Seal Mudok found the idea very practical and agreed on the spot. In a snowy wilderness, several people were hunting ogres, and every one of them was a first-level fugitive. Shuya gave the order, "Keep your distance and attack according to the training plan." Rennie and Gray answered in unison, standing by at any moment. In the snowfield, the giant ogre slowly approached, sniffing out their scent. Suddenly, Rennie and Gray launched a surprise attack from above and slammed down a heavy blow from behind. The ogre roared in pain. In the next second, it suddenly spun around and swept its club sideways. Rennie had not expected the counterattack to come so quickly and froze on the spot. At that moment, Shuyet rushed in within an instant. "Rennie, fall back." Rennie jerked backward and barely avoided the strike. Shuyet pressed in at close range, his twin blades slashing repeatedly and instantly tearing open the ogre's flesh. Blood sprayed everywhere. In the next second, the 3 of them attacked together. Several streaks of light passed through the ogre's body, and the beast crashed heavily to the ground. The battle ended without disaster, and everyone finally let out a breath of relief. A life-and-death fight is the easiest way to forge camaraderie, and Rennie and Gray agreed to go have a drink that night, but they did not know that a pair of eyes in the distance was fixed on them. Elsewhere on the ice field, another squad was also hunting. Suddenly, a rustling sound came from the woods ahead. The group tensed instantly and decided to fire a few arrows first to test the situation. In the next second, they drew their bows and loosed several arrows toward the source of the sound. But the arrows vanished into the forest with no response at all. The group relaxed and prepared to go forward to retrieve the arrows. But just then, a huge figure slowly emerged from behind the trees. Elsewhere, the recent hunts had left Seal Mudok quite satisfied. The local residents were no longer afraid of the ice ogres. After several operations, everyone was full of drive. Following the prearranged plan, even giant ogres could be taken down steadily. But suddenly, someone came to report that an unknown creature other than the ogres had appeared and had already caused many serious injuries. It was a huge snowman like being covered all over in white fur. Seal Mudok's heart sank. Ogres were only brute force, but this kind of snowman possessed high intelligence. In the next moment, Seal Mudok ordered, "Jerome, stop the hunt immediately." Everyone looked at Seal Mudok. "Are you going to deal with it personally?" Seal Mudok's expression turned hard. "Yes, I'll go ahead first. Once you've gathered everyone, follow behind." Across the ice field, Seal Mudok moved at tremendous speed. At the same time, he activated the Eye of Insight. Within the reach of that inner sight, nothing could remain hidden. Very soon, he locked onto the snowman's trail. In an instant, Seal Mudok drew the Surayang sword. As the sword left its sheath, a freezing gale rose with it and slashed toward the snowman. The snowman seemed to sense the killing intent within that sword, and fear appeared on its face for the first time. The sword shadow swept past, and the sword chi pierced through its body. But Seal Mudok frowned. The fatal strike had actually been avoided. When he turned to look, he saw that it had only suffered a slight wound on its arm. This monster that had run rampant through the north had smelled death on Seal Mudok. That fear made cold sweat pour from it. Seal Mudok pronounced coldly, "In your next life, be reborn as a human." The next second, he had already shifted in front of the snowman. The Surayang sword came crashing down with razor-sharp sword chi. But to Seal Mudok's surprise, the snowman vanished in an instant. A remark from Luffy flashed through Seal Mudok's mind. Majors above the fifth circle could use spatial magic to teleport. Yet this white-furred creature before him had actually used advanced spatial magic. But even if it could shift positions, it could not escape his grasp. In the next second, Seal Mudok gathered inner force into his palm. A strand of icy true chi shot explosively toward the direction of the escaping snowman's aura. Yet it seemed to strike empty air. That huge body, yet it moves like a rat. Even so, he could still catch that aura. Its spatial movement cannot carry it too far. Seal Mudok steadied his mind and sensed everything around him. Soon, beneath a giant tree, he discovered a cave. What Seal Mudok saw after entering the cave made even him pause for a moment. Deep inside the cave stood a large structure. Judging from the books arranged inside, it seemed that this place had once been a library. At that moment, Seal Mudok also spotted the snowman hiding within. "If you're going to hide, at least hide properly." The snowman looked as if it had been scared out of its wits and desperately shouted for Seal Mudok not to come closer. A snowman that could speak made Seal Mudok frown. "Are you human?" The snowman babbled incoherently. "I am the great hoary warrior, Condor." Just as Seal Mudok was wondering, footsteps sounded behind him. Jerome had arrived as well. Jerome's speed in getting here made Seal Mudok feel that something was off. But Jerome's explanation was simple. Among the destruction here, no one but Seal Mudok could possibly have caused it. Jerome looked toward the bookshelves. Why would a legendary snowman be hiding in a library? That was also what Seal Mudok wanted to ask. "You're called Condor? Where do you come from?" But Condor acted as if he had not heard, his gaze drifting blankly. In the next second, Seal Mudok pressed down with his inner force, his killing intent drawing near. "Speak, do not waste my patience." Tears welled in Condor's eyes, as if he had suffered some immense grievance. The next moment, he suddenly burst out. "I come from Grak." Seal Mudok frowned. "Grak? Is that your village? Are there many more snowmen there?" Condor said nothing and only nodded heavily. Seal Mudok continued questioning. "Set that aside for now. Why did you attack my villagers? Your answer will determine whether you live." Condor pounded his chest anxiously. "I didn't kill anyone. A great hoary warrior does not kill people casually." At that moment, Jerome also confirmed that Condor was telling the truth. Most of the reports were of severe injuries, with no deaths. Seal Mudok fell silent for a moment. Indeed, he had not heard of anyone dying before. Condor sat down against the wall. "Humans invaded the Holy Land and attacked first, so I drove them away." Only then did Seal Mudok realize that during the hunts, they had very likely stepped into the snowman's territory. In the next moment, Seal Mudok told Jerome to treat Condor's wounds. While Jerome treated him, Seal Mudok stared at Condor, his tone easing but becoming even more oppressive. "Tell me where the Holy Land is. My people will not step into it again." Condor became excited. "Really?" Seal Mudok replied blandly. "Of course, but the way you speak to me is far too casual. You should at least understand respect." But Condor clearly had no idea what respect meant. Seal Mudok could not even be bothered to argue. Forget it. Why bother getting serious with someone who can barely even speak properly? At that moment, Jerome reported, "The treatment is finished." Seal Mudok turned and left. "Since it's done, we're leaving." But Jerome called out from behind him, "May I make a request of you?" In the blink of an eye, Seal Mudok had already been in the northern frontier for a full 3 months. and Edmund had sat by the well, stubbornly waiting for Seal Mudok for those entire 3 months. At this moment, he finally broke down. Our merchant guild is finished. Sir Magic Swordsman clearly promised me that as long as I held on for 3 months, he would definitely send the ice. But even now, there hasn't been the slightest bit of news. Just as his assistant was about to comfort Edmund, an enormous shadow fell over their heads. Edmund looked up, and his pupils contracted sharply. A giant frost wyvern was descending from the sky. The oppressive force of the wyvern landing directly made both men's backs turn cold. Savina, riding on the wyvern's back, revealed a sweet smile. "Long time no see, Mr. Edmund. I've come to deliver the ice." Edmund was instantly overjoyed. I knew Sir Magic Swordsman would keep his promise. Looking at the enormous creature before him, he could not help drawing in a sharp breath. It was actually a frost wyvern. A monster that one alone could contend against an entire Night Order was being used merely to transport ice. Sir Magic Swordsman went to the Northern Territory. Just what did he do there? At that moment, Savina suddenly remembered something. She looked at Edmund. "Master asked me to deliver this letter to that person." Edmund understood immediately. Sir Magic Swordsman truly is deeply devoted. Inside the royal palace, Princess Ishilda held a teacup, quiet as ice. A young man sat opposite her. "Your Highness, thank you for accepting my invitation." This man was none other than Justin, the son of Duke Icarus. He took a light sip of red wine and sneered inwardly. "She's still that cold. She won't even give a perfunctory smile. The harder she is to obtain, the more interesting she becomes. One day, I'll make her smile." At that moment, a maid stepped forward and whispered a report into Ishilda's ear. Ishilda, who was usually so cold, became visibly excited at that very instant. Baron Blizzard sent a letter. She stood up immediately. "We're going at once." Justin suppressed his displeasure. "Princess, wait, I came early in the morning just to see you." Ishilda turned back, her tone crisp. "I heard your sword training leaves you with too little time every day. Don't waste your time here." Before Justin could speak again, Ishilda had already turned and left. Watching her departing figure, Justin's fury surged straight to his head. He smashed a fist down onto the table. His gaze darkened. "One day, I'll make you learn what I'm capable of." Inside the room, Ishilda impatiently tore open the envelope. To Princess Ishilda, with affection. "I wonder whether you have been well lately. I have been worried about you the whole time. Thanks to the lucky charm you gave me, everything has gone smoothly on my side. The Northern Territory is very suitable for living. There are warm hot springs and dazzling crystal caves. I have built a city here called White Ice Castle. It is beautiful here, but it has one fatal flaw. That is the absence of you. Without you, I feel an emptiness here unlike anything I have ever known. Enclosed is a small gift to carry my longing. I will write to you again. Missing you, Baron Blizzard." Ishilda quietly looked at the crystal ice flower in her hand, its glow cold and dazzling. She gently pressed the flower to her chest. Ishilda felt irritated. "What is happening to me? Why have I been thinking about him this whole time?" She stared at the radiant crystal ice flower in her palm. In the next second, she slammed her hand heavily onto the table. Ishilda's gaze turned resolute. "I have to see him with my own eyes." Meanwhile, inside a cave in the Northern Territory, Seal Mudok was frantically refining crystal ice flowers. But in the next second, the flower in his hand suddenly shattered. Seal Mudok's brow furrowed slightly. Destruction was something he excelled at, but this kind of fine control was still not his strength. A hurried figure rushed in. Jerome's expression was tense. "Please go to the office at once. I've made a major discovery." It turned out that the library they had found last time was actually a ruin left behind by ancient magicians. But Seal Mudok's expression returned to calm. So what if they left it behind? Jerome was choked by his indifference. This is the cultural heritage of ancient humanity, the foundation for restoring lost magic, and an opportunity to break through the fifth circle. Seal Mudok suddenly sensed a subtle aura. He looked at Jerome. "There is an unusual aura around your waist." Jerome instantly felt a headache coming on. "There's nothing important there. That thing has no value, so I didn't report it." With a pull from his palm, Seal Mudok directly snatched away the bundle at Jerome's waist from a distance. The more anxious Jerome became, the more Seal Mudok insisted on looking. But when the bundle was opened, what was inside left Seal Mudok unable to make sense of it at first. They were all small blue stones like ice crystals. Jerome explained that they were called mana stones, ores that condensed mana. Seal Mudok tossed the stones onto the table. "You hid these away, what were you planning to do?" It turned out that Jerome was already a fourth circle mage, only one step away from the fifth, yet he had never managed to break through that barrier. So after discovering the mana stones, he thought he might be able to use them to achieve a breakthrough. Seal Mudok looked at him quietly. Breaking through was indeed difficult, and he understood that kind of restlessness. But in the next moment, his tone turned even colder. "Precisely because of that, I will not allow you to take this path." Jerome grew anxious. "If I become stronger, it will help Calorin as well. Please allow me to use these stones. Seal Mudok rejected it outright. Impossible. If he relied on external objects to force his way upward, what would he use to overcome the next bottleneck? What truly mattered had never been the stones. Realm breakthroughs depended on comprehension and effort. Time would prove one's growth, and there were no shortcuts. Jerome fell silent. His lord was right. He too had walked step by step to reach the fourth circle. Seal Mudok placed a hand on Jerome's shoulder. Do not rush. Climb upward one step at a time, and one day you will understand. Jerome's heart shook. He did not even know when he had forgotten his grandfather's teachings. But then Jerome explained the mana stone's true use, and Seal Mudok's expression changed instantly. These things could actually be used for communication. As long as communication magic was cast on a mana stone, even people who knew no magic could converse through it. And the distance almost ignored all boundaries, reaching any corner of the world. Seal Mudok lowered his voice. Jerome, do you know what matters most in ruling a territory? The speed of information transmission. Inside the office, Seal Mudok gave the order. Immediately turn all the mana stones into communication stones. In White Ice Castle, everyone immediately began testing the mana stones. Seal Mudok listened to the voice coming from the stone in his hand. I can hear you clearly, Jack. Jack was trembling with excitement. At that moment he was in the sky above a plane 10 kilometers away from White Ice Castle. Jack circled through the air on a wyvern. There's absolutely no problem. Seal Mudok looked at the communication stone. There was almost no noise at all. The experiment had succeeded. At that moment, there was another disturbance at the door. It turned out that Savina had returned on a wyvern. Inside the conference room, Seal Mudok looked through the intelligence Savina had brought back. He had entrusted Edmund with compiling the situation of the surrounding kingdoms, but he had not expected it to be written in such great detail. Yet one name in the letter made Seal Mudok inexplicably uncomfortable, Anos. Seal Mudok asked in a low voice, Does anyone know who Anos is? Shuyet looked toward Seal Mudok. I do. Rumor says he is a top-tier sword saint. The moment Marcus and Jerome heard that, their expressions changed drastically. The others immediately began discussing it. In this world, a sword saint was already at the pinnacle, while a top-tier sword saint stood even higher still. At that moment, Seal Mudok raised a hand, and the whole room fell silent. A top-tier sword saint was equivalent to what the Central Plains called the realm of perfection. And once one stepped into that realm, one could condense a sword pill. Since arriving in this world, Seal Mudok had only heard that there were no more than a dozen realm of perfection experts, which had always disappointed him. But now, Anos had appeared, and Seal Mudok also wanted to see the strongest sword in this world. Shuyet stood up and added, that top-tier sword saint has another characteristic. When he uses swordsmanship, the fragrance of plum blossoms spreads. Those words made Seal Mudok's heart jolt violently. Because in the Central Plains, there was also a sword art whose strikes carried the scent of plum blossoms, the Huashan sect. A chill ran down Seal Mudok's spine. Could it be that I'm not the only one who came to this world? Back when he had unified the Central Plains, the dying leader of Huashan had once warned him, if his eldest disciple were still alive, the ending would not have been the same. That man had disappeared after entering seclusion, as if he had vanished completely from the world. Seal Mudok had thought it was only the ravings of a dying man, but now it seemed otherwise. The destined battle could not be avoided. And at that very moment, the Royal Knight Order arrived in the Northern Territory. The commander of the Knight Order was none other than Justin, son of Duke Icarus. Has your arm gotten any better? Justin gripped the arm that had once been injured, and the humiliating memory surged up once more. In the next second, he tightened his grip on his longsword, ready to strike at any moment. But Seal Mudok did not even look at him. Your Highness, stop hiding. Come out. A reunion after a long separation should have been joyful. Have you been well recently? Seal Mudok brought Ishilda to the crystal cave he had mentioned in the letter. With one glance, Ishilda was unable to hide her delight. This place is so beautiful. Seal Mudok had heard that after reading the letter, Ishilda had pestered her father for a long time before gaining permission to come with the Knight Order. Looking at her innocent expression, Seal Mudok became even more certain. Her willfulness had not changed at all, and she was almost exactly the same as Wayne in her previous life. Emotion churned within Seal Mudok. In order to avenge Wayne, he had trampled the entire martial world underfoot. After so many twists and turns, he had unexpectedly reunited with her here. Her identity had changed, but for him, that was already enough. Beside the hot spring, Ishilda smiled like melting winter snow. This place really is so beautiful. And at that moment, Seal Mudok slowly reached out his hand. The instant his fingertips touched her hair, he could no longer suppress his emotions. In the next second, he pulled her into his embrace. To me, you are even more beautiful. Ishilda's heartbeat instantly fell into chaos, and her gaze softened as well. The emotion Seal Mudok had suppressed for years broke loose at that moment. Wayne, I've missed you so much. The moment those words fell, Both people in the crystal cave sensed that something was wrong. Ishilda's expression turned cold in an instant. Who is that woman? Answer me, Baron Blizzard. Seal Mudok felt a headache coming on. Ishilda, I only misspoke. Ishilda's heart sank to the bottom. She had always thought that in Seal Mudok's eyes, there was only her. But today she finally understood that was not true. In the next moment, she lost control in hurt and grievance, her voice trembling. So this is the love you spoke of? Or is it the love you have for that woman named Wayan? Looking at the misunderstanding in Ishilda's eyes, Seal Mudok found himself unable to say a word for a moment. And then Ishilda turned and left. She looked back at Seal Mudok in disappointment. You don't need to explain, and it doesn't matter. Because the answer is already obvious. Watching Ishilda's departing back, Seal Mudok was full of unspoken bitterness. Even if he explained everything, she might not understand. In the midst of the wind and snow, Seal Mudok silently turned and walked away. His heart churned without end. Perhaps time would say what they could not. But at that very moment, an assassin struck from behind, the fatal blow as fast as lightning. The wind was bitterly cold, and the necklace I had always worn with me fell to the ground in the chaos. The scene shifted, and in the darkness Justin's expression was cold and hard. Irfan, how is that man? A killer Nelton reported, Duke Justin, the assassination was successful. Hearing those words, a wicked smile slowly curled across Justin's lips. Outside the guest quarters of White Ice Castle, 2 guards stood on high alert. Inside, Princess Ishilda's eyes were full of tears. That idiot, he clearly could have tried to make me stay. Just then, the guard at the door announced into the room, Your Highness, you have a visitor. That news seemed to lift Ishilda's mood a little, but when she opened the door, thinking it was me coming to apologize, what she saw instead was a chilling sight. Justin wore a crazed expression, and the 2 guards were already lying in pools of blood. He looked at Ishilda. Your Highness, I apologize for disturbing you so late. Ishilda's face instantly turned deathly pale with fright, and in the next moment she slammed the door shut. But in just an instant, the doorknob was sliced off by the sharp blade in Justin's hand. He swung wildly, directly chopping the door into pieces, and Ishilda was sent flying back into the room by the shock of the splinters. Justin's smile deepened. This sword has been enchanted with magic. Watching Justin walk in step by step, Ishilda shouted angrily, Justin, how dare you? You killed my guards and barged into my chamber without permission. Justin pinched Ishilda's chin. Anyone who stands in my way had better be prepared to die. And you, Princess Ishilda, you actually ignored my feelings and ran off to pester some man of unknown origin. Justin's smugness bordered on madness. But it doesn't matter anymore, because that man is already dead. I sent my most elite assassin group to kill him. Justin reached toward Ishilda. The ambush has already succeeded. By now, they may not even be able to find his corpse. Hearing that, Ishilda's world instantly collapsed. Baron Blizzard, how could he be dead? But just then, a figure suddenly appeared out of the darkness and struck Justin with a palm. That single blow smashed Justin straight into the wall. The aftershock continued, blasting a large hole through it. Ishilda slowly raised her head and saw clearly who it was. The terror of surviving disaster and the grievance she had been suppressing burst all at once, making her almost unable to stand. Seal Mudok looked at her calmly. I'm sorry. I came late. But at that moment, a strong sense of danger suddenly rose in his heart. The long sword that had just been in Justin's hand suddenly flew before him out of nowhere and slashed out a killing move. Seal Mudok lost balance for a moment and could not fully dodge in time. After the sword missed, it immediately flew back. Wrapped in violet light, the sword shadow retreated deeper into the darkness. From the darkness, a hand extended and steadily grasped the hilt. Seal Mudok shielded Ishilda behind him. Another one of Justin's tricks? In the next moment, a knight holding the flying sword slowly stepped out of the darkness. It was his father, Duke Icarus, the final gift prepared for Seal Mudok. Magic armor, combined with a magic sword. Even killing a top-tier sword saint might not be impossible with that combination. Justin laughed like a madman. Baron Blizzard, this time, doesn't it feel completely different from last time? Smoke rolled and churned, and Seal Mudok's figure gradually became clear. Good. His voice was low as cold iron. You have finally given me a reason I must kill you. Seeing Ishilda's face full of worry, Seal Mudok only signaled with his eyes for her to step back. Ishilda stared at his back, her voice trembling. You'll come back, won't you? Seal Mudok turned his head, his gaze unusually gentle. Don't be afraid. Go find somewhere safe to hide. The next second, Seal Mudok flew straight at Justin. Seal Mudok stared at him. It seems you really are different now. Justin charged forward, gripping his magic sword. Are you going to start that boring lecture of yours again? Wrapped in pale violet demonic aura, the magic sword slashed straight at Seal Mudok. Seal Mudok merely flicked it aside with sword fingers, forcefully shaking the attack away. He raised his eyes, his gaze cold as the snowline. In a flash, the magic sword returned to Justin's hand and he lunged again. This time, Seal Mudok actually blocked the strike with his arm. Justin's magic sword chi surged, forcing Seal Mudok to retreat half a step. Not giving Seal Mudok a chance to breathe, Justin kept pressing the attack. The more he fought, the more excited he became. Good, I'm forcing Seal Mudok back. He must have already exhausted himself dealing with the assassin group. This is my chance to kill him. Justin's speed rose again. I'll be the one to end all of this. Suddenly, a flash of cold light brushed past his face. The guard piece on his armor shattered on the spot, metal fragments flying. Justin's pupils contracted. He used that same move again, the one that pierced my wrist back then. With the armor piece broken, the advantage of his armor instantly collapsed, and Justin instinctively clutched his injured wrist. He had thought the battle might affect Ishilda, but it seemed he had worried for nothing. A chill rose in Justin's heart. Was he pretending to be suppressed just to widen the distance between himself and the princess? In the next moment, cold light burst from Seal Mudok's palm. If you dare lay a hand on Ishilda, you will pay the price. Justin felt an invisible pressure crashing down on him, making even his breathing heavier. He struck first, making his final desperate attempt. But it was already too late. Seal Mudok's icy true chi had already taken shape. As the true chi swept over him, Justin's whole body instantly stiffened. The next second, fierce cold light exploded, dazzling and blinding. Seal Mudok was this cautious for only one reason. He could not lose her again. A cold radiance blossomed in the air. When the cold light dispersed, it also marked the complete end of Justin's arrogance. In the wind and snow, he trembled like a sieve. Justin's eyes were filled with terror. His strongest trump cards had all been shattered. Seal Mudok looked down at him. Stop wasting your effort. I have already crippled your Dantian. From this day forward, for the rest of your life, you will never again be able to gather or use magic. Hearing that, Justin felt as though he had fallen into an icy abyss. In despair, he still threw a punch in an attempt to fight back. But it only humiliated him further. Seal Mudok raised a hand and struck him into the snow with a palm. Spend the rest of your life regretting what you did tonight. From now on, you too will become the kind of weakling you have always trampled on. At some point, the sun had already risen. Seal Mudok lifted a hand to block the light falling on his face. It was getting late, and he had to go back. After all, back in the castle, Ishilda was still worrying about him. And just like that, Justin's scheme was completely cut short. At this moment, there was even a trace of eager warmth on Seal Mudok's face. All the trouble had been dealt with, and what remained next was only his date with Ishilda. But the sight before him made him freeze. What was going on? What were Ishilda and Jerome doing? Time returned to 15 minutes earlier, when Seal Mudok had mobilized everyone to search for the necklace he had lost during the assassin ambush. It should be nearby. Search quickly. Whoever finds it first will be heavily rewarded. Jerome walked over beside him. You said you were ambushed by assassins here, and you lost a precious pendant? I checked. The assassin group was very strong. How did you escape unharmed? They had no real strength at all. Seal Mudok's voice was cold and hard. They only know how to hide and launch sneak attacks. A bunch of weaklings. If I hadn't needed to save Ishilda at the time, I wouldn't have lost even a single hair. Jerome nodded perfunctorily. Right, everything you say is correct. You're the strongest. Ishilda's voice came from behind them. So it really was because of me that you lost it. They saw Ishilda with tear stains all over her face. If you had looked for it first then, you definitely would have found it. But you didn't, because you ran off to save me. Seal Mudok immediately explained. No, your highness. If anyone is to blame, it's that bastard Justin, right Jerome? Ishilda was startled to see Jerome as well. Why is Count Jerome here? I heard you disappeared. Seal Mudok's expression instantly turned unpleasant. Jerome gave an awkward smile. That's how it is. I know you're happy, but you're being so enthusiastic. I'm a little at a loss. A trace of jealousy flared in Seal Mudok's eyes. You two seem rather close? Jerome hurriedly explained in fright. It's not what you think. Is that so? It looks exactly like that to me. The maid Lancia reminded in a low voice. Your highness had better clear up the misunderstanding as soon as possible. Seal Mudok frowned. Jerome used to be the person you respected most? Ishilda answered softly. Yes, Count Jerome is an extraordinary man. He was once a noble who truly cared for the people. When I heard he had been exiled to this barren land, I was very upset. You cannot imagine how heartbroken I was when I learned he had disappeared. Seal Mudok and Jerome exchanged a glance. I see, then why didn't you say so? Jerome explained blandly. Who goes around publicizing their own good deeds? Seal Mudok turned to Ishilda. Then why did you say, used to be? A faint blush appeared on Ishilda's face. Because now, I've met you. In that instant, the air turned ambiguous. Ishilda hurriedly ran off. Right, weren't you looking for your pendant? I'll go search over there. The maid quickly chased after her as well. And after running for some time, the princess finally stopped, trying hard to steady her breathing and calm her racing heart. Suddenly, she saw something on the ground glimmering with purple light. She crouched down. As though fate had arranged it on purpose, she had actually found the necklace. and when Ishilda placed the necklace back into Seal Mudok's hand, memories of her previous life began to awaken little by little in her dreams. That woman named Wayne seems to have an inseparable bond with Baron Blizzard. In the dream, she called him brother with intimate affection. Ishilda should have felt jealous, yet at this moment, she felt something she could not quite explain. Seal Mudok suddenly spoke, interrupting her thoughts. He turned in motion for her to follow. Princess Ishilda, would you like to go on a trip with me and change your mood? Above the sky, a massive frost wyvern descended in an instant. Its huge shadow scared the maid so badly that she dropped straight to the ground. But Ishilda's eyes lit up, and she could not even resist cheering. She was too excited to suppress it. This is the first time I've ever seen someone tame so many frost wyverns. At that moment, Jack and Jerome also walked over. My lord, we can depart now. Seal Mudok asked, is that thing ready? Just then, a snowball suddenly shot over, scaring the maid so badly that she fell back onto the ground again. Jerome lowered his head in apology. I didn't mean to scare you. And that snowball was actually Condor in transformed form. At Seal Mudok's request, Jerome had turned Condor into this small shape. The snowman who had once inspired terror had now become Ishilda's pet. Seeing how happy she was, Seal Mudok finally showed a trace of satisfaction. Everything was ready, so now it was time to depart. Seal Mudok sat atop the wyvern and extended a hand to Ishilda, signaling her to come up. Ishilda looked up at Seal Mudok. The next moment, Seal Mudok had already grasped her hand and pulled her up beside him. The huge figure of the frost wyvern swept across the northern sky. Leaning in Seal Mudok's arms, Ishilda felt unexpectedly secure. But the thing she found hardest to overcome now was her fear of heights. Seal Mudok gently placed a hand on her shoulder. Princess, look ahead. Ishilda slowly opened her eyes. In the next second, she froze. That was a sight she had never seen before. The gentle sunset passed through the clouds, colors spreading across the sky in brilliance so dazzling it stole the breath away. On the wyvern's back, Seal Mudok leaned close to her ear and asked softly, now, do you feel any better? Ishilda's heart suddenly softened. In the next second, a faint smile appeared at the corner of her lips. So he had been thinking of me all along. She looked up at Seal Mudok. Thanks to your arrangement, I feel much better. Seal Mudok held her tighter. Then hold on firmly. We're about to accelerate. The wyvern tore through the sky, stars filling the heavens, and the distance between them quietly narrowed. The scene shifted to an estate in the kingdom of Gaia. Rhea was somewhat surprised when she saw Seal Mudok. Why didn't you contact us in advance before coming? Seal Mudok smiled faintly. I'm only here to relax. Jerome can handle anything important. At this moment, nothing was more important than his date with Ishilda. Seal Mudok looked at Ishilda. This manor was prepared especially for you. Do you like it? Ishilda turned to look at Seal Mudok, but unintentionally caught sight of the pendant around his neck again. Fragments from her dream surfaced in her mind once more. Seal Mudok's voice interrupted her. Princess, are you alright? Ishilda looked at him. I had a strange dream last night. In the dream there were many strange buildings and people. In the dream, I was about 20 years old, with very fair skin, black hair, and black eyes. But I always wore a sorrowful expression. In the dream, my father kept desperately trying to stop my marriage. Ishilda gave an awkward little smile. Anyway, it was a very strange dream. Seal Mudok already understood part of it in his heart, and his fingers unconsciously tightened around the necklace. Ishilda showed a look of recollection. And, in the dream I was anxiously calling for someone the whole time. I called him brother. Hearing that, Seal Mudok's expression wavered slightly. In his long life, only one person had ever called him that, Wayne. Ishilda noticed his unusual reaction and asked worriedly, Baron Blizzard, are you alright? Seal Mudok gripped the necklace tightly. I lost my composure. Night fell, and Seal Mudok and Ishilda had dinner together. But at that moment, Ishilda made a request. Every time Seal Mudok called her princess, it made her feel as though there were a great distance between them. Ishilda looked somewhat conflicted. If you don't mind, from now on, could you just call me Ishilda? A flash of surprise passed through Seal Mudok's eyes, yet Wayne's shadow rose once more in his heart. In the next moment, Seal Mudok smiled lightly. Alright, I understand. Time passed little by little, and dinner soon came to an end. Jerome also entered at exactly the right moment to find Seal Mudok. Have you two finished dining? I've already dealt with matters in Skirton and returned. Hearing that place name, Ishilda froze slightly, because in the kingdom of Drake, she had never heard of Skirton. Seal Mudok looked at Ishilda and only then remembered that he had forgotten to explain. Skirton was not in the kingdom of Drake, but in the kingdom of Gaia. Hearing this, Ishilda could not help but feel startled. The kingdom of Gaia was located in the northwest of the continent. It was an extremely powerful kingdom, and it had been ruled by queens for generations, which was why it was also known as the Kingdom of Women. Among its strengths, the Kingdom of Gaia's Night Order, made up entirely of women, was especially famous for possessing power able to rival the Night Order of any kingdom. At that thought, unease immediately rose in Ishilda's heart. She had not expected to arrive in such a distant kingdom so quickly. Would her presence cause diplomatic trouble? Yet in the next moment, she still had Jerome continue his report. Jerome looked pleased. Recently, the ogre leather we've been supplying to the kingdom of Gaia has been very popular. Ria even made a good suggestion today. We should build a factory here directly and make leather products. The leather materials are already selling well, so is there really any need to turn them into finished goods before selling them? Jerome continued reporting to Seal Mudok. The main consumers in the kingdom of Gaia are noble women. If we turn the leather into expensive clothing and handbags, the profit will definitely be higher than it is now. And Ria knows Caloran's most famous leather craftsman. As long as my lord gives the word, production can begin immediately. After hearing the suggestion, Seal Mudok showed a trace of approval, and trusting the merchant group to Ruya had indeed been the right choice. Then carry out her plan. Jerome bowed his head. Understood. I'll make the arrangements at once. But just then, a burst of commotion suddenly rose outside. When everyone went to the door to look, flames were soaring into the sky not far away. Jerome's expression tightened. The source of the fire was far too close to their merchant group. If it was not controlled immediately, the flames would soon spread to their buildings. Seal Mudok turned back and said to Jerome, I'll go take a look. You and Ishilda stay here. The next second, Seal Mudok leapt downstairs and headed straight for the blaze. The situation at the fire scene was extremely dangerous. The flames were too fierce, and no one dared approach. When Seal Mudok stood before the fire, he realized the situation was even worse than he had imagined. But just then, footsteps sounded behind him. Jerome and Ishilda had not stayed where they were, but had followed after him. Ishilda hurriedly explained, I was worried about you, so I came. Suddenly, Seal Mudok seemed to hear cries for help from deep within the fire. He turned and walked step by step toward the sea of flames. Amid Ishilda's cries, he did not hesitate and rushed straight in. He broke through a window and entered the burning building. Inside, black smoke billowed and flames roared. Seal Mudok gathered a force of icy inner power in his palm, then pressed his hand to the ground. In the next instant, a vast surge of inner force erupted, and the icy energy spread along the ground, freezing the flames in an instant. Cold chi and blazing fire collided head-on, producing a harsh tearing sound. The inferno that had just been devouring everything was forcibly suppressed. Only then did Seal Mudok discover that an unconscious woman was lying on the ground. He extended 2 fingers to feel the pulse at the side of her neck. Tough enough to survive, Seal Mudok said quietly. She's actually still alive. Seal Mudok picked up the woman and rushed outside, but in the next second, half-collapsed burning beams and debris crashed down. The icy power inside Seal Mudok exploded outward in all directions. The building, which had been engulfed in flames just moments earlier, was instantly shrouded in freezing energy. Watching from outside, Jerome felt his scalp go numb. Was that 8th circle freezing magic, or even 9th circle? Yet at that very moment, a trace of joy instead appeared on Ishilda's face. Amid the cold mist, Seal Mudok slowly emerged carrying the woman over his shoulder. The lights flickered, and a man spoke with a grave expression. I have seen signs of rebellion. The princess's gaze turned sharp as a blade. Who dares rebel against those above them? But in the next moment, the figure of the man before her gradually blurred. In a daze, the woman slowly opened her eyes. She sat up, completely bewildered. What place was this? A ray of light shone in through the doorway. The woman pushed the door open and stepped out, her gaze turning colder. She did not recognize a single one of these people. Ria stepped forward. You're finally awake. Are you still feeling unwell anywhere? The woman carried a natural arrogance in her bearing, and Ria told her that this was the Caloran merchant group. The woman understood at once. So this is the merchant group that has recently become famous for its leather trade. But why don't you recognize me? Aren't you residents of the kingdom of Gaia? Ria looked at her. We are Caloran from the kingdom of Great, which is why we're called the Caloran merchant group. The woman narrowed her eyes. Who saved me? Ria answered. It was our Baron Blizzard. He rescued you from the fire. The woman walked up to Seal Mudok. I heard that you were the one who saved me. I thank you for it. My name is Siler McMahon. The moment those words were spoken, everyone was stunned on the spot. It turned out that Siler was the second princess of Gaia. She had entered the Sword Saint realm at the age of 15, and she also served as commander of the kingdom's Night Order, making her one of the most famous figures in the kingdom of Gaia. Ria quickly stood and bowed. Please forgive our discourtesy, Your Highness. Meanwhile, Ishilda was full of worry. Encountering another kingdom's princess here would cause enormous trouble if her own identity were exposed. Siler looked at Seal Mudok. You saved my life, so I will personally reward you. After dinner, come with me to the palace. Ishilda's tension and restraint were all seen clearly by Seal Mudok. In the next moment, he looked straight at Siler. Please forgive me for refusing. I must return immediately. Seal Mudok's refusal made Siler displeased on the spot. Ria's heart also sank. This is bad. Refusing an invitation from Gaia's royal family is an extremely rude thing to do. Rhea hurriedly stepped forward to smooth things over. Perhaps our lord is simply too nervous in front of your highness. In the next second, she immediately changed the subject. Speaking of which, why was your highness in the burning building? The name flashed through Siler's mind, Duke Dayton. That bastard wanted to assassinate me. She showed a look of contempt. It was nothing more than a group of despicable people trying to kill me. Setting the building on fire was to make sure no evidence was left behind. Siler looked at Seal Mudok again. No matter what, you saved me. Tell me, what do you want? But just then, Siler's stomach let out an untimely growl. Seal Mudok swept her with a cold glance. Forget conditions for now. Fill your stomach first. He paid no mind to her anger. You haven't eaten anything since last night. Sit down and eat with us. Though full of displeasure, Siler ultimately could not resist the temptation of food and sat down anyway. But just then, she noticed something. A longsword leaning against the wall. She could not help asking, whose sword is that? Seal Mudok answered lightly, mine. Siler's movement stopped at once. So you use a sword? I am the commander of the Night Order, and I want to see your swordsmanship. Baron Blizzard, after the meal, let's have a match. Seal Mudok's gaze was icy. I refuse. I do not spar with people weaker than me. Siler instantly flew into a rage. He dare say I'm weak? What does he take me, a sword saint, for? Because she was a woman, many male swordsmen would also refuse her challenge invitations, and there was only one way to force them to accept. In the next moment, Siler stood up, her eyes full of disdain. It seems you're afraid of losing. Seal Mudok was indeed provoked. He stood up with his sword in hand. Then come outside. I'll teach you a few moves. Inside the manor grounds, Siler stood holding her sword. Jerome looked deeply worried. Don't forget that your opponent is a princess. Please make sure to hold back. Siler was already too impatient to wait. Are you done with the nonsense? She had seen countless men like Seal Mudok, and in the end, all of them had fallen beneath her sword. She was almost vicious with excitement. I'm already looking forward to seeing how your face twists in a moment. Siler gripped her sword in one hand. Suddenly, a gleam of sword light shone on the blade. With a flash of cold brilliance, it swept directly across Seal Mudok's line of sight. A sonic boom rang out in the air. In a single instant, Siler had already killed her way to Seal Mudok's front. Yet Seal Mudok merely raised his sword slightly and stepped sideways, dissolving her extremely fast strike. Siler steadied herself. Anyone who could block her thrust was no blustering fraud. Her body turned with the sword, and Siler's figure spun around behind Seal Mudok. In the blink of an eye, Seal Mudok shifted aside again, dodging the sword chi she slashed out. Before the momentum of the sword could fade, Siler stabbed out again with a backhand strike. Seal Mudok merely swept his sword lightly and retreated with the motion. In a lightning-fast instant, Siler unleashed several streaks of sword chi in succession. He blocked all my sword techniques with the smallest possible movements. This man is absurdly strong. Her body followed her sword as Siler flashed to Seal Mudok's front once more, and her longsword swept across, forcing Seal Mudok into the air with its sword chi. Without giving him even half a chance to breathe, Siler immediately chased after him, flashing to Seal Mudok's front in an instant. Then she turned and whipped out a side kick, striking the body of Seal Mudok's sword. This woman was terrifyingly fierce. That kick actually sent Seal Mudok flying 100 meters. Seal Mudok slowly rose to his feet. Her continuous assault is like that of a master who has polished her techniques to the limit. If I keep dodging like this, she'll tear this manor apart. In the next moment, Seal Mudok countercharged, his blade striking repeatedly as cold light burst forth. Siler seized an opening and whipped out another back kick, and Seal Mudok immediately raised his sword to block. Before she could change moves, Seal Mudok drove a punch into her lower abdomen, and the tremendous force made her body pitch forward. At the same time, Seal Mudok's hand had already closed around her neck. With a slight exertion of force, Siler crashed to the ground on the spot. And the moment she raised her eyes, Seal Mudok's sword was already at her throat. She had lost. Jerome hurriedly stepped forward. Both of your swordsmanships are extraordinary. Let's end it here for today. But Siler's face was dark as she demanded that Seal Mudok accept another duel, otherwise she would lodge a protest with the Kingdom of Drake. The moment those words came out, everyone's expression changed drastically, and they all quickly begged her not to do that. Seal Mudok turned to look at her. Knowing how to admit defeat is also part of a warrior's bearing. You are a princess of a great kingdom, yet you behave like a child. Siler struggled to her feet. What did you say? She charged at Seal Mudok again. That's complete nonsense. Sword shadows suddenly appeared in the air, and in the next instant, cold light stopped before her eyes. In the manner, Seal Mudok advanced with sword in hand, and Siler finally halted her steps. The vast gap in power forced Sylar to drop to her knees. She had not even seen the trajectory of Seal Mudok's sword. The cold light in Seal Mudok's eyes grew heavier still. Is this how your kingdom treats a lifesaver? I have already shown mercy only because you are a princess. But Sylar could hear none of it. Why can't I win? Does that mean everything I've done all my life was fake? From childhood until now, she had always taken first place in every swordsmanship tournament. Her mother had also always told her that she would become Gaia's sword saint. But today, the title of Gaia Sword Saint, in which she had taken such pride, had been crushed so easily by someone else. Just what kind of man was he? Ishilda also quickly ran to Seal Mudok's side. Seal Mudok looked at Ishilda. They'll be returning to Caloran tomorrow. For now, let's go stroll around the city. In the next moment, Seal Mudok took Ishilda by the arm and turned to leave. At the same time, Seal Mudok said to Jerome, "Go buy me a few swords. That fight just now damaged the blades." Sylar stood behind them, quietly watching everything. But in the next second, she suddenly spoke. "That woman traveling with Baron Blizzard, is she his wife?" Jerome looked at her. "I'm not at liberty to reveal that, but she is also a distinguished person from a certain family." Sylar lowered her eyes and thought, "So, he isn't married yet." In the next moment, she directly gave an order. "Go fetch me a carriage. I'm returning to the royal palace." Her thoughts churned in secret. Since becoming a sword saint, this is the first time I've encountered an opponent stronger than me. She lifted her eyes to the sky. If I had met him earlier, would the ending have been completely different? Not long afterward, Sylar also returned to the palace. She sent people to investigate Baron Dayton, only to find that he had already died in his own cellar, still clutching a letter in his hand. The letter ended with, "I had no choice, because my family was being held hostage." Standing in the shadows, Sylar's gaze was cold and resolute. "They sent assassins to kill me first, and then they silenced the Baron." In struggles for power, there is never any blank space. The true mastermind behind that fire was most likely her elder sister, who appeared close to her on the surface but was actually her enemy. The birthday of Malova, king of the kingdom of Drake, was approaching, and Sylar also asked her sister for an opportunity to pay a visit. Her sister teased with amusement. "The one who saved you is from the kingdom of Drake, isn't he?" But none of that mattered to Seal Mudok. He had already returned to White Ice Castle in Caloran. Duke Icarus held overwhelming power. Even though his son Justin had committed monstrous crimes, he still used his far-reaching influence to protect him. And he ordered his subordinate Ross to make trouble for the Caloran merchant group. Ishilda also began her return journey and went back to the royal palace. Before that, Seal Mudok had given her a communication stone so they could stay in contact at any time. With undercurrents surging both inside and outside the kingdom of Drake, Seal Mudok had to integrate his own forces more quickly. The assassin group Justin had sent to kill Seal Mudok had already been crushed by him and secretly imprisoned. And now, Seal Mudok intended to win them over, using their own methods against their master. Although their overall strength was relatively weak, there were two among them who were clearly still usable. The assassination group, together with the Wyvern Riders, would surely be able to achieve results no one expected. Seal Mudok also decided to use the king's birthday as an opportunity to officially step into the kingdom's political sphere. At that moment, the Knight Commander Shuyet received a summons and came to report. Seal Mudok looked at the assassins. "You only have two choices. First, become my people. Second, die by my hand. But with your current level, you are still nowhere near good enough to serve under me. I have prepared training to make you stronger. Take up the weapons behind me and knock down all the knights outside." Soon after, the assassin members put on their equipment, their killing intent condensing as they stood ready to strike at any moment. In the forest, 3 members of the assassin group assumed taut battle stances. Suddenly, a training opponent charged out from deep within the woods. The opponent's heavy blow was forcibly blocked by one of them with a shield. 2 large hands clamped down onto the attacker's shoulders. That training opponent was slammed into the snow. The assassin members took the metal from the training opponent's body. In the next moment, they shouted at the top of their lungs, "That's one down. Tonight we won't have to go hungry." High above on a treetop, Seal Mudok quietly looked down on this training session. Their joint sparring had already lasted 3 weeks, and the rules were simple to the point of cruelty. Every person carried a medal. If it was taken, it meant death. If all medals were taken, it meant defeat. It seemed simple, yet it was the fastest way to make them grow. The losers could only be eliminated, and both sides had to keep growing stronger, exactly to Seal Mudok's liking. He looked into the distance, where the signal from the tracking magic lit up once more. The assassins had all been marked with tracking magic. The moment they left the designated area, the signal would light up. A man was running wildly through the snow, and a cold voice sounded beside him, "Miller, this is the 10th time already." Miller's whole body shuddered. And when he looked up, he saw that familiar figure. Seal Mudok's voice did not contain the slightest warmth. "I told you, if there's a next time, you're dead." Miller panted heavily. "I don't have time to play this kind of game with you." In the next second, a strike landed on the back of his neck, and he collapsed on the spot, unconscious. Beck, the assassin squad leader, dropped to one knee. "Forgive us, my lord. Please be magnanimous and spare us this once." Seal Mudok looked down at Beck. Why is he the only one so desperate to escape? Beck answered, "He wants to avenge his family. When Miller was young, everyone in his family except him was killed. He received information that the enemy who murdered his family will attend the banquet in the kingdom's capital next month." Hearing that, Seal Mudok fell silent. Snow swirled in the wind, inside White Ice Castle, and Miller's tightly shut eyes slowly opened. I quietly looked out the window. At King Drake's birthday banquet, there will be hundreds of majors and knights on guard. Do you think you can succeed in sneaking in alone to assassinate your target? Miller looked at me. "Beck, did the captain tell you about me?" In the next moment, he clenched his fist. "I have lived my whole life for revenge. As long as I can have my vengeance, I don't care even if it costs me my life." I turned back to look at him. "I can tell you clearly that you probably won't even be able to get close to your enemy. In the end, you'll only throw your life away for nothing. But I can attend that banquet as a noble, so we can make a deal. That is, I will help you get your revenge, and in return, you must sincerely swear loyalty to me." Miller frowned. "Why would you help me? There are plenty of assassins stronger than I am." I looked at Miller. "Beck told me that among people in their 20s, you're the only one who became a top-tier assassin. What I value more is your potential." I extended my right hand to him. "So the assassination squad I am building needs you. Now, are you willing to make this deal with me?" Memory surged, and hatred pierced to the bone. In the next moment, Miller knelt before Seal Mudok. "As long as I can get my revenge, I'm willing to do anything." Seal Mudok was very satisfied with this result. "We leave in a few days. Make your preparations before departure." Just then, Savina pushed the door open and entered. She looked at Seal Mudok with a face full of joy. "Master, the ice cream is ready. You can come eat it now." But the moment Miller saw Savina, he froze. He pressed a hand to his suddenly racing heart. "That woman is?" The scene shifted, and in the conference hall, Seal Mudok and the various captains were conducting their daily routine report. Suddenly, Jack shoved the door open and rushed in, flustered and furious. "I really can't take it anymore. That damned bastard has blocked off all the land routes." Seal Mudok lazily raised his eyes. "Jack, calm down. Explain it clearly." It turned out that Viscount Ross of Tot City had been making things difficult for the Caloran merchant caravan lately. And now, he had simply sealed the road completely. Seal Mudok looked at Jack. "Then take a detour, or use the frost wyverns to fly over, isn't that enough?" But Jerome reminded him that the frost wyverns had limited carrying capacity, and some goods could only go by land. And to reach the capital, Tot City was an unavoidable route. And with the king's birthday approaching, Ross blocking the road at a time like this was most likely an attempt to prevent my lord from attending the banquet. Seal Mudok frowned. "I have no grudge against him, so why would he do this?" From Jerome, Seal Mudok learned that Ross was one of Duke Icarus's subordinates. Not long after Justin returned, this happened, so there was an 80% chance that Icarus had ordered it behind the scenes. Seal Mudok let out a cold laugh. "Since they made the first move, then they can't blame me for striking back." Hearing that, Jerome almost jumped. "My lord, are you considering launching a territorial war?" A territorial war meant an open war between lords, one that even the king could not directly interfere with. By the rules, launching a territorial war required first informing the king and issuing a declaration of war to the opponent. But there was one exception. If the battle was concluded quickly before word reached the king, and only then reported afterward, it was also acceptable. Hearing this, Seal Mudok sank into thought for a moment. "Good. It's also time to test what I've prepared during this period." In the next moment, Seal Mudok gave the order. "Shuyet, leave only the minimum number of troops in the territory and prepare to move out." Seal Mudok looked at Marcus. "Tell the assassination squad to stand by where they are, and send Miller alone to scout Tot City." Then he looked at Jack. "Go prepare the Wyvern Rider Corps for battle." Jack was somewhat worried. The Knight Corps only had 20 men, so wouldn't that be too few for a territorial war? Seal Mudok's gaze pressed down on him. "Too few? Are you really the commander of the Wyvern Rider Corps? You've been training the Wyverns this whole time. Do you still not trust their power?" Jack immediately accepted the order. "Our numbers are small, but the Wyverns are not weak." Jerome was still worried about Seal Mudok going into battle so rashly. Gambling with the lives of the residents in an unknown war was too risky. Viscount Ross was still holding 6,000 territorial residents who had not yet been relocated as hostages. Once war began, those residents would be put in danger. What was more, Toth City's forces outnumbered theirs by more than 10 to 1, and if they received support from Duke Icarus, the situation would become even worse. Seal Mudok looked at him coldly. 2 days. Seal Mudok spoke each word distinctly. Before they can react, we end the battle within 2 days. After saying that, he walked past Jerome. Jerome, as a strategist, don't show anxiety in front of the soldiers. In the next moment, Seal Mudok walked outside. Is everything ready? He looked at the Caloran army standing fully prepared. Everyone, this is Caloran's declaration of war. The scene shifted, and on the other side, Ross was still arresting Caloran residents in Tot City. In his view, this plan was flawless. Caloran, the frozen land, could only rely on food from outside. Its terrain was blocked by mountain ranges, and without passing through Tot City, one could not reach the capital. And all nobles were required to attend the king's birthday banquet. So if Blizzard failed to appear, he would be stripped of his position as lord. And Ross would be able to seize Caloran in the meantime. That way, he could curry favor with Duke Icarus and strive for the rank of Count or even Marquis. Just as he was trembling with excitement over his own scheme, a dark shadow suddenly dropped outside the office window. A frost wyvern crashed through the window. On the wyvern's back stood Seal Mudok in proud composure. In the next instant, a streak of light brushed past Ross's ear. This is Caloran's declaration of war. I will come back to collect it in 2 hours. Not long afterward, soldiers lined the city wall, and civilians crowded beneath the gate in front. Ross was nearly delirious with excitement. Come on, if you want to win, then first kill the residents of your own territory with your own hands. On the open ground, the full Caloran army stood in formation. In the next second, Seal Mudok gave the order, now, begin the attack. On the city wall, Ross looked down over the battlefield. In the next moment, countless frost wyverns swept in like a blizzard descending from the sky. Ross froze on the spot. Every wyvern carried a massive boulder on its back and dived toward the city wall. The giant stones crashed down, smoke and dust erupting everywhere, and Tot City soldiers instantly fell into chaos. Some boulders also missed their mark and flew toward the outside of the wall. At that critical moment, Jerome appeared, a dazzling magic circle lighting up in his palm as he forcibly stopped the falling boulders. The horn of attack sounded, and Marcus led the knights in a charge. The warriors of Caloran lived up to their name, their giant axes swinging like reapers, forcing the defenders to scatter in panic. Since when did Caloran's army become this strong? A massive frost wyvern landed on the city wall, and a single roar was enough to shake people to their core. High above, Seal Mudok kept his eyes fixed on the battlefield the entire time, ready to step in with support at any moment. Before a squad of fully armed knights, Seal Mudok drifted lightly down to the ground. Their scalps instantly went numb. Where had he appeared from? In the next moment, they all charged together. He's only one man. Attack together. Seal Mudok merely raised one finger, and the power of ice condensed into thin threads, instantly piercing through their bodies. Seal Mudok's figure flashed, already appearing behind them like a phantom. In the next second, the icy inner force exploded within their bodies, and the entire squad of knights collapsed at once. Standing atop the city wall, Seal Mudok looked into the distance. Now, only that person remained. Ross had already reached the end of the road, and his soldiers had long since been scared out of their wits. He kicked one of them. You useless trash. His only hope was to hold out until Duke Icarus's reinforcements arrived. But his cruelty caused his subordinates' resentment to erupt completely. One soldier suddenly struck, punching him in the face. Ross was knocked to the ground on the spot. In the next second, those few soldiers turned and ran. If someone's going to die, die by yourself, you idiot. Just then, a bone-piercing chill rose behind Ross, and a pressure like a giant eye opened behind him. Seal Mudok's figure also appeared before him. Seal Mudok approached step by step. Viscount Ross, it seems things did not go the way you imagined. Ross suddenly dropped to his knees and cowed out. I was wrong. I admit defeat. I was also only acting under Duke Icarus's orders, against my will. Please spare me. Jack arrived riding a frost wyvern. We captured the soldier who was trying to go to Duke Icarus's territory to report the news. The moment those words were spoken, Ross's face turned deathly pale. Seal Mudok lowered his voice to the extreme. You worked hard to spin lies for so long, Viscount Ross. You dared persecute the people of my territory, then repay it with your life. In the next second, Seal Mudok reached forward with one hand. But at that very moment, a curtain of light sprang up in front of him and actually blocked the attack. Seal Mudok turned to the side. What are you doing? The one who had intervened was actually Jerome. He looked at Seal Mudok. No matter how grave a noble's crimes are, the only one who can decide his life or death is the king. If you kill Viscount Ross here, our position will become very difficult. Ross, as if grabbing a lifeline, immediately shouted, He's right, you ignorant fool. At the same time, that smug look crawled back onto his face. At this moment, a person slowly emerged from the forest, looking like reinforcements summoned by Ross. Ross grew even more smug. Did you think I only sent people to Duke Icarus? A territorial war is supposed to be reported to the king first and carried out under royal witness. But you didn't report it, so I sent Volmer to the royal capital to accuse you. You wanted to force me to surrender before the king found out? Now it's all fallen apart. After hearing this, Seal Mudok's expression turned sharply cold, but in the next second, he smiled. That smile made Ross uneasy instead. Had he gone mad? Seal Mudok looked at Volmer beside Ross. Now, you can reveal your true identity. In the next moment, Volmer raised a hand and tore off the disguise from his face. Under the stunned, speechless gazes of Jerome and Ross, the human skin mask was pulled away, revealing none other than Miller, the assassin secretly trained by Seal Mudok. At the same time, a cold gleam flashed in Seal Mudok's eyes. Ross finally realized that all hope was gone, and only despair remained in his eyes. Fear crushed his reason, and Ross turned to flee. Icy true energy surged through the ground, freezing both his feet in an instant. In the next moment, Seal Mudok clenched his fist and gathered force. Unable to move, Ross could only watch helplessly as the fist came crashing toward him. In a split second, the gale burst open, and that punch, carrying terrifying inner force, landed on his face. The immense force sent Ross flying 100 meters. In the next second, Ross's face twisted and exploded apart, and his body slammed heavily into the ground, falling silent forever. Everyone quietly looked at Ross, sprawled motionless on the ground. In the next moment, Seal Mudok turned back to look at them. Amid the excitement and wild joy on everyone's faces, Seal Mudok also showed a faint smile he could not suppress. This territorial war, Caloran wins. Afterward, everything was pushed forward cleanly and decisively. Ross lost everything and was expelled from the territory, then disappeared a few days later. Tot City was formally incorporated into Caloran. At Jerome's recommendation, Volmer, who had once been a retainer of the Roxland family, took over the administration of Tot City. Seal Mudok could not fully trust him, so he arranged for 2 nights to watch him closely and report daily. After that, the king's birthday arrived as scheduled. But Seal Mudok had not expected that the first familiar person he would meet at the birthday banquet would be Princess Sylar. Sylar took the initiative to greet him, while Seal Mudok merely responded with polite restraint. The king's birthday banquet had invited important figures from many nations, and at this moment, the 2 entering were Princess Daphne of the Kingdom of Hazen and Count Anos. The moment they appeared, a low stir immediately swept through the crowd. The name Anos also made Seal Mudok's heart sink. He was the top sword Saint Edmund had mentioned in his letter, and simply seeing this man standing here caused Seal Mudok to instinctively feel a trace of unease. In the next moment, the king appeared with the 2 princesses, and their brilliance overshadowed the entire hall. This scene surprised Sylar slightly, so the woman who had always been by Seal Mudok's side was actually a princess of the Kingdom of Drake. And Ishilda, standing on the stage, also saw Seal Mudok in the crowd, with Sylar beside him. Seeing the 2 standing so close, jealousy instantly surged in Ishilda's heart. Why is she here? Wasn't it supposed to be the first princess of Gaia who came? Everyone stepped forward one after another to offer congratulations to the king. King Malova also gave a congratulatory speech, signaling that everyone should enjoy the evening to the fullest together. And next came the part everyone was looking forward to most, the presentation of gifts. Duke Icarus was the first to step forward and present his gift. It was a magic ring, one capable of nullifying all attack magic below the 4th circle. Duke Icarus showed a proud smile. I hope this ring will protect your majesty from harm in the future. The moment the ring was revealed, the crowd immediately stirred once again. Such an artifact imbued with high-level magic was extremely rare, and its value was beyond estimation. The king was also very pleased. Thank you for such a precious gift, Duke Icarus. Although the gifts offered by everyone afterward were also expensive, all of them were overshadowed by that ring. Because Seal Mudok's status was special, it was not until the very end that it became his turn to step forward with his gift. The first gift Seal Mudok presented was the hide of an ice ogre he had hunted personally. This immediately displeased Duke Icarus. You dare present such a crude thing as a gift, as expected of a vulgar commoner who can't appear on a proper stage. But in the next moment, Seal Mudok looked again toward the king. However, I believe that offering only leather is not enough. I have a second gift. The king and the 2 princesses were all piqued with interest, because inside the box were only 3 eggs that looked utterly unremarkable. Seal Mudok spoke evenly. Those are monster eggs. Duke Icarus flew into a rage on the spot. How dare you? This is an insult to the royal family. In the next moment, he directly gave the order, drag Baron Blizzard out. But the king suddenly let out a roar. Everyone, stop. The king suppressed his anger. I will hear your explanation. What is your reason for doing this? Seal Mudok answered calmly. These are not ordinary eggs. They are frost wyvern eggs. Those words caused both the king and Duke Icarus to change expression at once. Caloran's frost wyverns were nearly twice the size of ordinary wyverns, with fierce temperaments, and even if one obtained the eggs, raising them was extremely difficult. But once tamed, their combat power would be enough to elevate the kingdom of Drake's military strength by an entire level. King Malova stared at the 3 dragon eggs and could not help swallowing. He looked at Seal Mudok in shock. I like the gift very much, but you also know, raising frost wyverns may be even harder than obtaining their eggs. Seal Mudok's expression did not change. Your Majesty is right, raising frost wyverns is indeed not easy. In the next moment, Seal Mudok placed his fingers to his lips and blew a whistle, while calling out the name of his wyvern, Lily. Immediately, the enormous figure of a frost wyvern appeared outside the window. Seal Mudok continued, "This is the frost wyvern I have raised since childhood. I can pass the raising method on to the kingdom's beast keepers. As long as, at the moment of hatching, the hatchling's first sight is of your Majesty, it will regard you as its parent and follow you for life. The other 2 eggs, meanwhile, are offered to the 2 princesses, and in the future the frost wyverns will become reliable guardians protecting them." The king's heart could no longer remain calm. He had not only received the most significant gift, but had also seen that Seal Mudok had even thought ahead about his daughter's safety. In the next moment, the king burst into laughter. "This is the best gift I have ever received in my life. Seal Mudok, I thank you greatly." Beside him, Ishilda's face was full of relief. No wonder Seal Mudok had contacted her a few days ago and said he had a surprise for her. But just then, Duke Icarus suddenly attacked. "I have an important matter to report. Does your Majesty know that a few days ago, Baron Blizzard deployed troops to the territory of Viscount Ross? That is to say, Baron Blizzard launched a territorial war without permission." Duke Icarus's expression was fierce. "This man is arrogant in the extreme and has moved troops recklessly. I ask your Majesty to punish him severely." The Great Hall instantly fell so silent that breathing could be heard. The king also lowered his head and thought, if this was true, it would indeed be troublesome. But in the next moment, Seal Mudok asked the king in return, "Your Majesty, in the kingdom of Drake, is slave trading illegal?" In the next second, Seal Mudok pulled a scroll from his robes, on which Viscount Ross's slave trade was recorded. "Viscount Ross abducted citizens of my territory and sold them as slaves." Standing in the Great Hall, Seal Mudok's anger was as cold as ice. When one's own people are sold into slavery, no lord would remain silent. Cold sweat seeped down Duke Icarus's back. He had not expected that idiot Ross, blinded by greed, had secretly engaged in slave trading. Ishilda also immediately added the crucial point on Seal Mudok's behalf. When dealing with someone who is clearly violating royal law, there is no need to inform the king beforehand. A territorial war may be launched immediately. She even deliberately blinked at the king. "Father, am I right?" The king lifted a hand to cover his mouth, as if suppressing a smile and as if weighing the situation. The reason was sufficient, and there was simply no way to blame Seal Mudok for this. In the next second, he followed the flow and made the ruling. "From this moment on, I declare, Tot City is formally incorporated into Caloran territory." At the side, Count also took the opportunity to speak. Since Baron Blizzard has expanded his territory, should he not also be granted the corresponding title? The king immediately understood. "Count is right, Baron Blizzard, step forward." At the king's signal, Seal Mudok stepped forward. The king raised his hand and draped the ogre-hide Seal Mudok had presented over his shoulders. "From this day onward, I appoint you as Viscount Blizzard." Promoted in rank and title, he received congratulations from the entire hall, with only Duke Icarus's face darkening to black. Duke Icarus's gaze was sinister. He would stop at nothing to pull Seal Mudok down from this position. In the next second, he turned and left, while in the corner a man had been watching all of this coldly the entire time. Outside the corridor, the night wind rushed in. Seal Mudok felt somewhat gratified by tonight's result. He was moving step by step closer to the center of power, and also step by step closer to Ishilda. But at that moment, the main door opened, and a man walked out. It was none other than Count Enos of the Kingdom of Hazen. Enos got straight to the point. "I finally found you." Those words made Seal Mudok pause slightly. Enos was speaking in the language of the Central Plains. Enos slowly closed the door. "You are an enemy of my Manhwa sect." His killing intent was utterly undisguised. "I walked a long road to find you." He slowly drew the longsword in his hand. A faint scent of plum blossoms drifted through the air, and Seal Mudok's heart suddenly sank. This man was the disciple Elder Jongpong had mentioned before his death, the one hailed as the strongest rising talent of the Central Plains, Yi Jingcheng. At this moment, Enos drew his sword and advanced towards Seal Mudok step by step. In the palace corridor, killing intent was on the verge of erupting. This was also the strongest enemy Seal Mudok had encountered since coming to this world. Faced with this fated battle, neither of them held back in the slightest. The blood-red sword chi bursting from Anos's blade instantly forced Seal Mudok back. In the next moment, inner force gathered in his palm, vast as a tide. With a flash of splendor, he was already in front of Seal Mudok in the blink of an eye. In the next second, he thrust out his palm, and Seal Mudok was blasted back dozens of meters. The inner force in that palm strike was frighteningly heavy. Seal Mudok's body swayed, nearly losing balance. Without giving Seal Mudok room to breathe, Anos closed in again and slashed out another blood-red stream of sword chi. Seal Mudok could only unfold his movement technique and flash above him, forcibly evading it. After the brief exchange, the two faced each other from a distance. Anos's strength shocked Seal Mudok. The title of strongest rising talent in the Central Plains was absolutely not empty praise. Anos's killing intent surged. This is as far as you go. 5 years. I searched for you for a full 5 years. That day, you and I were on the same ship. I was always looking for a chance to kill you. But wind, waves, and blinding light swallowed everything, and by the time I came to my senses, I was already here. Anos's aura rose again. But I never forgot you, and I never forgot the blood debt of Manhua. That pressure made cold sweat bead at Seal Mudok's temples, and even the taste of the air changed. In the next moment, the long sword in Anos's hand erupted with incomparable sword intent. At last he would be able to kill Seal Mudok and wash away Mount Hua's long-standing hatred. The overwhelming sword intent in the corridor pressed down until Seal Mudok's breathing caught. He might not even be able to block this strike. But just then, the corridor door was suddenly pushed open, and a foot stepped inside. At the sudden disturbance, both Seal Mudok and Anos raised their eyes at once. Princess Sylar walked in. "Viscount Blizzard, I've been looking for you for quite a while. What are you two doing here?" Seal Mudok immediately suppressed his emotions and explained with a smile. "This is an old friend from my homeland whom I haven't seen in a long time. We were just talking for a bit." Anos cast a cold glance over Sylar, the second princess of the Kingdom of Gaia. He quickly weighed the situation. Killing someone in front of a princess of a kingdom would turn things into an irreparable disaster, so he could only postpone it. He said to Sylar, "In that case, enjoy your conversation. I'll take my leave first." After speaking, he turned and walked toward the corridor door. When he reached the doorway, he suddenly transmitted his words. "Seal Mudok, listen carefully." Seal Mudok's eyes darkened. This was the art of voice transmission. Anos's voice was cold. "Just as you took away what was most precious to me, I will also destroy everything you cherish. Your property, the people close to you, I will spare none of them." At the same time, his gaze passed beyond the corridor and landed on Ishilda. "The first one will be that princess of the Kingdom of Drake who keeps looking at you with love in her eyes." Seal Mudok's pupils contracted sharply. "You bastard. Ishilda has nothing to do with what happened between us." Anos's figure gradually receded. "Then we'll see what you do. Take care, Seal Mudok." The threat Anos left behind instantly drove Seal Mudok's mood to the bottom. But Sylar tried to make conversation. "You and Count Anos seem to be talking very seriously." Seal Mudok had no mind to deal with her. "I have urgent business. I'm leaving first." But Sylar caught hold of the corner of his clothes. Seal Mudok stopped. "Do you still have something to say?" Sylar seemed to choke on her words. "Actually, it's nothing important." In the next moment, she forced up the princess's pride again. "But I came to find you personally, and now you're just going to leave? Don't you think that's very rude?" Seal Mudok looked at her coldly. "Your Highness should be very busy. Distinguished guests from every nation are here, and you ought to be representing the Kingdom of Gaia in entertaining them. Why are you lingering here pestering me?" Sylar's eyes instantly filled with disappointment and unwillingness. The words "pestering me" stabbed into her heart like thorns. All her life, men had been desperate to exchange even one more sentence with her, but this man was different. In the next moment, she said softly, "Don't misunderstand. I only came to congratulate you on becoming a Viscount." Sylar felt a tightness in her chest. "That really is all." Seal Mudok also realized his words had been too harsh. "I spoke too strongly. My apologies, Princess Sylar, but I truly have urgent business, so I must take my leave." In the next moment, Seal Mudok pushed the door open and entered. "In any case, thank you for your congratulations." The door closed, leaving Sylar standing alone in the corridor. Through the glass in the door, she looked inside. And at that moment, Seal Mudok was already striding quickly toward Ishilda, the anxiety on his face completely undisguised. Sylar's throat tightened. If I had met him first, would he have liked me? But in the next moment, she forcibly pulled back her emotions. Now is not the time to think about these things. Surviving comes first. At the far end of the corridor, she looked into the distance. What mattered most to her was surviving her sister's assassination attempts. Meanwhile, Princess Daphne of the Kingdom of Hazen unexpectedly hit it off immediately with Jerome in a pavilion of the royal palace, and the two talked together happily. Who would have thought that Jerome happened to be exactly the kind of beautiful man Princess Daphne liked? But as a princess, she had never truly had freedom. Her brother had long ago arranged her engagement to Count Anos. Jerome was gentle in speech, with light in his words, and before anyone noticed, he had drawn Princess Daphne's heart away. Princess Daphne's cheeks flushed slightly. This man really was different. Just a few brief exchanges under the moonlight were enough to send her heart wildly out of control and make her decide in secret. At this moment, the so-called tall and mighty Anos instead seemed cold and unfamiliar in her eyes. Anos walked up beneath the pavilion. "I've been looking for you for a long time." He saw Jerome, and his eyes immediately darkened. "Who is this man?" Jerome replied calmly, "I'm just a passing mage." Then he lowered his head to Princess Daphne and salute. "Since your guard knight has arrived, I will take my leave." But Princess Daphne called Jerome back from behind, and even stepped forward to whisper something quietly to him. That scene made Anos's anger surge. He reminded her coldly, "Princess, you should know. Once the banquet is over, His Majesty has already promised to hold a grand engagement ceremony for us." Hearing that, Jerome's heart shook. Could it be that this encounter can only end here? A look of despair also surfaced in Princess Daphne's eyes. Anos wore an aloof and proudful expression. "So please, little by little, open your heart to me, Your Highness." Princess Daphne's expression dimmed. She had no power to resist her brother's decision. But before leaving, she turned back to look at Jerome. She mouthed the words to him, "3 days from now, see you again." After that, she gave Jerome a charming smile. Jerome remained calm on the surface, but inside great waves were rising. That was the princess's silent resistance, and also her recognition of him, Jerome. The scene shifted to the Royal Merchant Guild building. Seal Mudok, Edmund, and Jerome were discussing one matter. Miller, the assassin Seal Mudok had secretly trained. Before becoming an assassin, Miller had been the second son of Count Kramer's family, a highly prestigious house in the Kingdom of Drake. But 10 years ago, the entire family had been poisoned, and only Miller had survived by chance. Seal Mudok looked at Jerome. After this period of investigation, had he found the real culprit? Jerome told him, on the surface, it was the doing of Baron Badian, but Badian was not the true culprit. Edmund's expression was heavy. Badian was only a puppet. The person who had truly given the order was someone else. Meanwhile, Miller could no longer hold himself back. He had to kill Baron Badian and complete his revenge. But just as he was about to set out, Seal Mudok's group came toward him head-on. Edmund looked at Miller with emotion. He had been so young when he saw him back then, and now he had grown this much. In the next moment, he revealed his identity. "I am Edmund of the Royal Merchant Guild. Count Kramer once supported my guild, and now I will tell you the truth of that day. The one who carried out the poisoning was Baron Badian, but the true mastermind behind it was Duke Icarus." Miller was so shocked that he lost his voice. "How is that possible? What benefit could Duke Icarus gain from eliminating my family?" Edmund said helplessly, "The Casa Merchant Guild is the largest merchant guild in the Kingdom of Drake, and its true power holder is Duke Icarus. In order to strengthen the Cossack Merchant Guild, Duke Icarus eliminated both the Royal Merchant Guild and the Kramer family, who had both been flourishing at the time." After hearing this, Miller completely broke down. "So that means, all these years I've been serving the very enemy who slaughtered my whole family?" His emotions exploded, and he threw back his head in laughter. How tragic. Seal Mudok and the other two could only watch him in silence, because at this moment any comfort would sound like mockery. Not long afterward, Miller's eyes turned extremely cold. "I'm going to kill Duke Icarus right now." Seal Mudok looked at him. "With your current strength, you cannot kill Duke Icarus, who is a sword saint." But Miller was swallowed by hatred. "So what if I can't? Are you going to stop me?" Seal Mudok raised a hand, and the power of ice rapidly gathered. In the next moment, a sword of ice took shape in his palm. "If you insist on going, then defeat me first." Miller's gaze was like a blade. "No one is stopping me now. I will never back down." In the next second, his inner force erupted, and his short blade shot towards Seal Mudok like lightning. But in the blink of an eye, Seal Mudok had already flashed behind him. Miller reacted extremely quickly and lashed out with a back kick, sweeping past Seal Mudok's side. Force gathered at Seal Mudok's fingertips. Miller really had improved fast, but not enough. In the next moment, finger force struck Miller's body. Seal Mudok had already held back, but Miller still could not withstand the blow. He crashed heavily to the ground, his acupoint sealed, unable to move for a long time. But just then, Miller raised his thumb and pressed several acupoints on his own body. In the next moment, he actually struggled into a seated position by force. Seal Mudok frowned. He had never taught Miller this method of releasing sealed acupoints. "How did you do that?" Miller answered in a trembling voice. "Just now. Didn't you demonstrate it for me yourself?" Seal Mudok's expression shifted slightly. To learn it after seeing it only once, such talent was almost terrifying. Miller still tried to stand. "My fight with you isn't over yet." But in the next moment, he could no longer hold on and fainted. Seal Mudok instructed Edmund, "Carry him back to his room." When he wakes up, have him come see me. Edmund was worried. Are you going to punish young Master Miller? Seal Mudok looked at him. You're mistaken. Starting tomorrow, I will teach him personally. Seal Mudok even felt a trace of joy in his heart. His judgment back then had been right. Miller was an uncut jade. If polished, he could become a true top expert. Of course, that would take time. But at that moment, the communication stone in Seal Mudok's hand suddenly rang. A voice came from within the communication stone. Viscount Blizzard, it's me, Ishilda. Please help me, it's too cold here. At Ishilda's words, Seal Mudok's heart suddenly sank. Where are you? But in the next second, the communication stone fell completely silent. The situation was urgent, and Seal Mudok had no time to say anything to the other two. In the next moment, he directly sprang into motion and rushed out.